All right, guys, welcome in to episode 4 of Super Metroid Strat Chat. Good evening, everybody. For everybody who's already here or anybody who watches the VOD later, thank you for tuning in. My name is Kipp. My co-host is True Moss. Moss, you there?
Hey, Kipp. I'm here.
All right, man. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. I was just going to say, have you been up to anything? We haven't had a Strat Chat since the new year began. Is there anything new that's been going on for you lately?
Well, not a lot. I mean, I had a nice break and a little bit of time down from doing too much Metroid, but I'm back in starting a new route. It's a new year. It's time for a new route.
That's exciting, man. Yeah, I saw you were streaming, I think, last night, maybe another time, and you were working on some new route stuff. So how's that been going so far?
Good. I mean, you die a lot.
Yeah.
You die a lot is what I've kind of learned. But it's good. I like the early period when you're learning a new route where you're just like knocking off your time, like shaving off, 30 seconds a minute
right
each time you run, I got a 46 today and
nice, dude.
Yeah, so it's coming along. I wasn't really happy with the run in the end, so I could probably beat my old route PB pretty soon.
That's
a couple of things go the right way.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool, man. So I'm excited to see that. In terms of me, the only real thing I've done in the last couple weeks, I signed up for the Link to the Past No Major Glitches tournament that's coming up in March. And so I wanted to give Super Metroid just a little bit of time off, but I didn't want to do that until the end of January because January, the end of January was when I started running this past year for the first time. So yeah. I wanted to kind of see what I could do in 1 year. And so I'm trying to lower some of my PBs and categories just by a little bit. And luckily I was able to knock several minutes off my RBO time a few days ago. And other than that, I might go back and do a little bit of hundo before the end of the month. But it's been going good. And so we kind of just bring up these times and show these stats at the beginning just, to remind everybody that, we're here to try to help a variety of players across a lot of different categories or just all kinds of things. And Tree Moss and I are, at least somewhat experienced in most of the major categories. So that's kind of the focus, is to help people not only that, are trying to get top times, but just anybody that wants to learn anything about the game. And so I'm really excited on that note to mention our guest tonight. Galamoz is here. He's going to be our guest for episode 4. Somebody that I've been very excited about having on the show. And before we even start, I think most people are aware that he is the winner. He was the winner of the Super Metroid randomizer tournament, which was really exciting. So Galamoz, are you there?
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, man, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat with us for a little bit tonight, man.
Looking forward to it.
So I just put up your stats on the screen. So before we kind of start asking you some questions, I want to point out a couple of things. You have, in terms of Super Metroid, you have an any percent, your any percent PB is a new route PB of 4508, which is good enough to be ranked 20th, which is a very high ranking. But in addition to that, you have an any percent old route time of 4511, which is only 3 seconds away from your PB with new route, and a low 45 in old route is like crazy fast. So like just give me some perspective. Like, did you get that old route time a long time ago, or like how did you kind of approach both of them and treat them differently?
I got the old route PB about a couple weeks ago, I think.
Okay, so it's actually a more recent development.
Yes, and so I got my new route PB, I think, 1 year ago. So I just started learning old route, just like, I don't know, give it a shot, because I never actually like really tried to learn it.
Wait a
So it's
minute.
really interesting.
When you started running this game, did you immediately do new route?
Yes, I did. Like,
Wow.
when I first started like trying to play this game like competitively, I was like, I'm just going to go straight to new route.
Man, that's really baller. Like, just out of curiosity, I mean, I think everybody that is aware of you knows you're an incredibly, you know, gifted and you practice really hard in terms of being a gamer. But, like, for everybody that runs SM, the idea of just immediately going to new route seems incredibly difficult and, like, maybe even frustrating for people. So, like, was it easy for you, or what was that experience like going straight to it?
It was pretty tough. 'Cause going to new route means you're just gonna die a lot or get stuck in the moat for a long time.
Gotcha. I think I accidentally put up the wrong. I got the right time for your 100%, but I accidentally typed in the wrong ranking. So my apologies. I'll fix that.
Yeah,
You're way higher than that. But a 116.11 in Hundo is actually incredibly high too. So you've got really good times in the two sort of main categories of SM. But another thing that's really fascinating is you hold the world record for a ton of like hacks. Like, I don't even know what all the terms are. There's hacks, and what are the other like definitions for the different things that you run that are SM related?
So for ROM hacks, there's, you can say, like two different categories. Half hacks means it's mostly like the original like Super Metroid game,
Okay.
but it's like slightly altered in some form of fashion. And those are usually considered like lower quality hacks, because like not much effort was put into it to like give it like a new game kind of feel.
Sure.
And full hacks are like uh, the whole map's been changed. Like there's lots of different like, I suppose, routes you could do, or I'm not sure.
Okay. So
Like new maps, maybe the physics have been changed a lot, things like that.
okay, so you've got, I only have some of them listed. It was going to be really hard for me to list like every category and stuff. So I've got listed that you're the world record holder of at least one category or any percent in Ancient Chozo, Retroid, Mission Rescue, Hyper, Project Base, Escape 2, but you actually hold like multiple records in a lot of these games.
Yeah.
And so you're incredibly, familiar and experienced with not only Super Metroid, but all these other games. Can you just kind of talk me through a little bit about, why you find those hacks and stuff so fascinating and why you like to run them and sort of solve them or whatever?
So, several years ago, there was a huge drought of no Metroid games, and I'm like that sad Metroid fan who still wants to play Metroid games. So hacks is like the best way to like solve that problem. So I could still play like a brand new Metroid game, even though it's like, hey, hack. But Super Metroid has like the best feeling like 2D mechanics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very enjoyable to like go through all these like new games. So I just really enjoyed playing them.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. And so, like, I'm sure the competition for those games is, still pretty good because I've seen a lot of really solid players doing a lot of these different hacks or ROMs or whatever. So, but I'm sure it's not quite as competitive as, like, the base game just because I'm sure there's not 600 times or whatever for, like, 80% for some of these. But I think it's really neat watching people try to solve new games. Like, I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm one of those people that I really haven't brought anything new to Super Metroid at all. I'm basically just trying my best to look at what other people are doing and try to play as well as I can. But people like you are actually like getting inside of these games, especially these hacks and stuff, and like figuring out ways to make them faster. It's almost like a different kind of puzzle, So it's cool to watch you do that. So before we get back into more Super Metroid stuff, can you tell us a little bit about your gaming history? Like, how long have you been gaming? What got you into speedrunning? What were some things you were doing before you ran Super Metroid? Just some stuff like that.
Let's see. I guess it started off when I was like a kid, and I first got a Super Nintendo, and I just played lots of like Super Mario World and games like that. But I actually never got Super Metroid, which was really disappointing. So I did want to like get that game, but I just missed out on it. I got really competitive into gaming when I started off with Super Smash Brothers Melee, and that's a very competitive game in like the East and West Coast. But since I live in Texas, it doesn't have like a huge scene like those other sites do. But I really enjoyed playing that game, and I practiced I put in a lot of time of practice in that one, even though I didn't like join any tournaments or anything like that.
So you were playing Smash? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Smash Brothers.
So I gotta know, who was like your main in that game?
Samus, of course.
That's really funny.
Yeah, still that Metroid fan. Still want to play more Metroid.
No doubt. So what about like future plans, like for Super Metroid or anything related to Super Metroid? Do you have any specific goals for 2018 or anything you're working on like that?
For 2018, I want to get a good time in Super Metroid Redesign, which is another ROM hack that you may know that Elminster plays.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
That's a really tough ROM hack, and Elminster has put like a ton of time into like research and practice into that, and so I kind of want to like play it and see like what he's been going through, and it's a tough game.
Yeah, well that sounds good.
Yeah, and I do want to get a 44 for Old Route, 80% for Vanilla Super Metroid.
Nice.
And after those two, I want to get, I would say, a 42 or 43 for New Route, 80%.
That'd be awesome to watch. I've got a bunch of questions. Like, I actually want to kind of go in depth on two more things with the Rando tournament and then your movement tutorial, which we'll probably talk about last before we get to the strat portion of the game. But Moss, I'm going to let you ask some questions. You have some specific things you like to talk to Galamoz about?
Well, really, I wanted to just jump right into the randomizer stuff, actually.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Well, I mean, firstly, congratulations. It's amazing that you came out on top after all of that.
Thank you.
So, I guess the first question is prior to the tournament starting, were you like a big rando person, or were you just like grinding it for the sole purpose of that tournament?
I wasn't really a big rando guy. I did play it like several times. I even made the randomizer for one of the ROM hacks, Project Base.
Yeah.
Based off Desirex randomizer code. And that was a really interesting experience having to like build that. And really, I just practiced just for this tournament.
Okay,
wow.
so
that's impressive, man.
Yeah, to that end, I actually this is going to be in some ways like a really fun portion of this interview because it's not even really about like strats and running the game. It's more like this big event because that randomizer tournament lasted a while and it garnered a lot of attention. Like a lot of people were watching those matches, and I enjoyed it. I loved playing in it. I loved doing commentary and just watching. But one thing I don't think very many people knew, and I want to go on record, I'm not trying to embarrass you, Galamoz, but I remember distinctly, I called at least one of your matches, maybe a few, and I also mentioned it in chat that like you to me were one of the people that I was the least surprised to see do well, if that makes sense. Like, I knew you were very, very good, but I kind of felt like there were a lot of just casual people that didn't really watch a lot of speedruns that just showed up for the event that were like, who's this guy? And I kept being like, y'all just don't understand. Like, this guy's very good. He's probably going to beat a lot of people. And so I wasn't surprised to see you do well, but one thing I wasn't even aware of until late in the tournament was you do all your speedrunning on Super Nintendo normally, correct?
That's right.
But you were actually having to do your randomizer seeds on an emulator on your computer because your SD2 SNES cart, like, broke or something. Is that right?
Yeah, it just like randomly crapped out like one day, and then I just like could never boot it back up.
Okay.
I could never find like a way to fix it.
So just from my perspective, from somebody that uses my SD2 all the time on like, a CRT or whatever, that sounds like an absolute nightmare to me, like having to do tournament matches on an emulator. Can you talk me through a little bit about what that was like? Surely that was like a bit problematic and difficult to do, yes?
Yeah, it was not pleasant at all. That I just had to like get used to it. It was like, so I was like kind of switching back and forth because like I was playing some 80% during that time as well. So it was an experience.
I can only imagine. So you were basically having to get used to like controller lag, or excuse me, like lag, between what you did and kind of what happened on the screen. But I guess you probably had to use a different controller, or did you have like a USB controller, or did you have just like an adapter?
I had a USB controller, the iBuffalo one,
Right.
from the computer, and then the normal Super Nintendo controller for console.
And so, I mean, those are nice. Like, I've seen those, and I actually own one. I've never really used it, but at the same time, it probably didn't feel exactly like the controller you were accustomed to. Is that true?
They're pretty similar, but the original Super Nintendo controller is way better.
Yeah.
Like, in every way.
Wow. That's amazing, Galamoz. That's like winning the Tour de France and like with your front wheel falling off. Like, I'm without words about that. Like, gosh. So how did you find like, specific rooms, like, trying to nail, I don't know, full halfy or, tricks that are very precise in movement? Did you find like you were just missing them a lot, or?
I started relying on muscle memory in a way. So like I'm using the memory I built up from like playing on console, and I just let my hands do all the thing.
Yeah.
And then I just get full halfy.
Sure. Well, because like I'll be like when I'm just streaming, you have your preview screen on your OBS, and like sometimes I'll just like look at that screen, which has a little delay, and just try to do a mock ball, and like it just feels like my game is not doing what it's supposed to do,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to build on your sort of concept, True Moss, I think it's more like he's riding in the Tour de Force, and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, use this Huffy bike instead of your racing bike," which is nuts. It's like because I was in the tournament, and it's basically like knowing that hundreds of people are watching, and that it's a tournament and it's a competitive setting gives you a little bit more juice, and so you're like a little bit more focused. But trying to do that under the circumstances of not feeling comfortable, to me, sound like it'd be even worse. Like, can you think of any specific moments that stick out to you that you've thought like, man, I really wish I had my equipment? Like, were there any matches that didn't go the way you wanted to, or anything that stood out that kind of hurt you from using the emulator?
There was one in particular. Like, I was like trying to do my tournament match on the emulator, and then all of a sudden I get this pop-up like telling me to update my PDF software, and I'm like, I can't see anything. And so I had to like click off the update thing, and I had to like restart the room because I was doing the what was it? Like after you come back from the speed booster room. Like, yeah. I got stuck in the lava, so I had to like restart the room.
Oh no, that's like one of the worst places that could have happened.
Oh man.
All right, so let me see if my list is correct here. I don't remember the exact bracket, but I'm going to name a few people that I think I remember you running against. You defeated Oats and Goats, is that correct?
Oh yeah, that was a really good match.
You defeated Elminster RTA.
Hmm.
You defeated Fuzda. Is
Yeah,
that because I think I called that one? Then you defeated. Let me think. Who else did you play? You actually defeated Ponk twice, I believe, and Ponk was the runner-up for the tournament. Yes.
yeah, that's right.
And so you went through the whole tournament. You didn't lose a single match. I mean, I think there were obviously individual games where you lost, but you never lost a match. Is that correct?
Yeah, I still stayed up on the winners bracket the whole time. I did
Nice.
lose I guess one individual match, but I never dropped the set.
Okay, so first of all, obviously, congratulations. I mean, I was really happy when you won. But secondly, like, talk me through a little bit. Randomizers are really interesting, and the Super Metroid one is, I guess, the way I like to look at it is I feel like the Super Metroid one is very similar to how you actually play the real speed run, more so than some of the other randomizers I've seen from other games. So, can you talk me through a little bit about how you felt like your skill set translated really well to performance in the randomizer? Like, were there any particular things you were doing? Like, did you have any strategies that you employed, or were you just kind of like adapting along the way?
I feel like besides having some of the strats like high jumpless lava dive, like those are something you would really need to know if you're put in that situation.
Right.
But other than that, it was mostly like adapting to like your the equipment you happen to like acquire along the way. So all the strats like change, but sometimes it's easy to forget like what item you picked up,
Yeah.
and so like forgetting to like switch your strats along the way.
Right. Or the wonderful experience of not having high jump boots but having speed booster,
Yeah, exactly.
which is probably the worst thing that can happen. Cool. Well, Moss, any other questions about the rando tournament?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested, yeah, as well in like the choices you make, because like one of the things I find hard about doing a randomizer is, I get to a certain place and I have a certain set of items, and like I have to just stop moving and think, because like I can't just like keep moving and think, okay, I can go here next and get this, because I have to think about all the items I have and what doors I can even open, or so.
Yeah.
Did you like have any like plans or like ideas of roughly how long it takes to go somewhere? Like if you want to go and check the waterway, like did you know roughly how long it takes to go and check that, or did you have like anything kind of figured out in terms of your routing?
I had some like other routes like planned as in like how much time it takes to like collect this item, if it's like worthwhile or not. But I I got this route that I was kind of inspired by Zosti because I was watching one of his practice streams,
Hmm.
and I sort of built my routing around that idea, which was to go to clear out all of Brinstar and go to Norfair. Like that's usually what I want to do, because before I would always go to like Wreckship, but it usually never paid off that well.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay,
somehow I was doing like fairly well and like practice. So
so I've got a question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit on this one, okay? You mentioned
right.
Zost, and I distinctly remember like you were streaming one time and you and I were like hanging out chatting about the rando tournament, and we were both just like, holy cow, how on earth is anybody going to beat Zost, right?
Yes.
Because we had watched him, and you know don't get me wrong, the ability to run a rando versus the ability to speedrun the game, they're slightly different, but at the same time, your core abilities in the game are really going to carry you, right? Like, it's going to be very difficult for a less experienced runner, who's running, I don't know, like a 50 any percent to like beat Zost just because they're going to lose on movement alone pretty much. But
Hmm.
what did it feel like for you when you found out that he'd been knocked out? Like, was there ever a moment where you were like, oh, thank God I don't have to play against him?
Yeah, it was definitely relieving, but at the same time, it was kind of disappointing because like Zost is like got knocked out.
Right.
But I knew like since that happened, my chances of succeeding were like more improved.
Yeah.
So it's kind of relieving.
Yeah, that was one thing I was a little disappointed when he got knocked out was, I wanted to see him race against like you and some of the other guys because I thought those would have been really intriguing. But yeah, dude, that was the randomizer tournament as in general, like, it's just for fun, but it is a competitive venture. Do you find like racing against somebody in that setting to be like really fun, or do you kind of typically prefer a little bit more of the individual speedrunning thing?
What do you mean by the individual speedrunning? Like
Well,
just having like times comparing?
yeah, so
Or
like when you're doing individual speed runs, it's just you in the game, and so you mess up, and then you can just start over, and you're going for like your one run that is as close to your, I guess, roof or ceiling as you can make it. But when you're
okay.
doing like a randomizer race, like it's not really a speed run. You know what I mean? I mean, you're trying to go as fast as you can, but you're having to like consider what are they doing. How much risk do I want to put in my run? And it adds this sort of different element, you know what I mean? So do you
Yes.
enjoy that competitive aspect, or do you kind of enjoy the individual speedrunning thing a little bit more?
I'd say I enjoy both, but I think I really enjoy the races because it's like direct competition in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lots of fun. That's actually why I actually changed to old route because Slithers was pulling up really good times and doing old route while I was doing new route. So I was like, well, okay, I want to make it more competitive, so I started learning old route just to be more competitive with Sloters.
That's awesome. So you're talking about like for some of the weekly races and stuff like that?
Yeah. For the weekly races, like Friday nights,
Nice.
and those were lots of fun.
For
And we
sure.
have like really close races too.
Yeah, you guys, I haven't been able to be in as many of them lately, but every single one where both of y'all have been in it, y'all have finished first and second, or you know, like if somebody died or whatever. But otherwise, y'all are like usually very, very tight on the time. So it's cool to watch y'all do that.
So let's do. We're gonna start talking about just basic movement in your strats or your tutorial about movement. But maybe we can do a little bit of bridging the gap between randomizer and basic movement. I wouldn't recommend a brand new person who has never played Super Metroid to jump into a randomizer quickly. But what would you say in terms of what a randomizer can offer a person who's maybe not brand new but has been learning the game for a while? Like, what would you say is the advantage of how could playing a randomizer help you just improve your overall time?
Um, not too sure exactly. Just getting put into like unusual like situations and knowing how to like make best use out of your equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like a new player wouldn't really benefit too much from that.
Sure.
I would say it's just have fun.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump in with the. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Kip.
yeah. Before we do, I was just gonna say, I think you're making a good point. Like, you know, I think everybody who's run the game, or probably any game, but especially Super Metroid, because let's all admit here, I mean, it's not an easy game, at all. And to get really good times, you have to not only perform really well, but you got to practice a lot. But I think the randomizer is pretty cool because it adds an element of fun. Not that speedruns aren't fun; they're very fun, but it adds an element of fun that you don't necessarily get with the traditional speedrun. Because you get to play the game in different ways, and it's not really about your time because every randomizer seed is different. It's almost like solving a puzzle, and in particular when you're doing it with friends or racing, I think it's like, to me, it kind of reinvigorated. Like, I enjoyed practicing and doing randomizers for the tournament because it allowed me to just kind of have like a little bit more fun than just worrying about like a specific time I was trying to get or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like having fun is probably the most important part if you're like interested in speedrunning. Because if you're not having fun to begin with, then it's not going to really help you too much.
Yeah, you'll burn out pretty fast. But anyway, Moss, go right ahead, man. Let's jump into talking about some movement things with Galamoz and discussing his tutorial a little bit.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, I was checking out a bit of your tutorial. It's like pretty crazy long. It's like 5 hours or something, right?
A little longer than I expected.
Yeah. Well, so we're tonight. what we're trying to do is we want to talk basic movement for the main reason that when we're looking at segments of various categories, every time we get to a section and we say like, okay, you got to do a down back here, we always like then have to go through the process of re-explaining, okay, so this is how a down back works. And so we want to have a thing where it's like, okay, this is, if you don't know what it is, go to this this video and it's got all the stuff essentially. So in general, for basic movement, is there like one or two really major points that you would say are the best things for a new runner to be paying attention to?
The best things. I'd say having good like consistent wall jumps is really good, and then I would say ledge grabs, because ledge grabs helps with let's say lots of different things at once, and it could help with like room transitions if like usually it comes to that. But yeah, I would say the ledge grabs and wall jumps are really important.
Right, yeah, that's what we like every time we're talking about strats. The first thing we say is practice your ledge grabs. If you're not doing ledge grabs already, you should try to, I usually say day one if you're starting to learn this game. Don't worry about arm pumping, worry about ledge grabbing.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, very true. And one thing that was kind of cool about your tutorial was that, one of the things I remember you mentioned was like, hey, I've got some pretty decent times in Super Metroid, but I've also run, all these other hacks and, versions of Super Metroid at a high level. And so, like, there's no way to do that without a significant understanding of the core components of how the game works. You know what I mean? And so when I watched your tutorial, I didn't have like the times that I have now, but I still had, decent times. I've been playing for a while, but I learned so much, and I like immediately started shaving some time off of different categories because I was able to look at the game a little bit differently. You know what I mean? So can you explain, I know you mentioned that, ledge grabs are super important and stuff like that, but just as in general, what do you think might be one of the biggest areas of weakness for a newer player in terms of how they approach movement? Like, do you think maybe jumping too far, staying in the air too long, or not understanding basic mechanics for speed? Like, what do you think are some of the biggest issues?
I would say might be like, trying to stay on the ground as much as possible and minimize your time in the air. I'd say that's also one of the bigger things, because I see a lot of new players and they just like overdo their jumps. Like they stay in the air longer than they're supposed to. So they end up losing lots of time like everywhere because of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just to sort of reiterate the fact that you have a lot of this knowledge and that you're a super cool guy, one thing a lot of people might not know is you have been very helpful to a lot of players, not only with your tutorial, but you've even done individual things for people. Like, I remember when I first got started, when I was around like 58 or something like that, I remember you watched one of my runs and like typed up a long list of things that you thought would be beneficial to me. And then later I asked you to do that video on a couple of the room strats for New Route or whatever. So number one, thank you. I really appreciated that. And then number two, I remember distinctly you talking about those exact things in that write-up that you did for me. So clearly that's probably an issue you see with a lot of newer players. And then talk us through a little bit about, that the movement tutorial was 5 hours long, and you did cover some basic things, but you were also showing them in the context of the old route run. What was it like doing that tutorial, like making something like that and having it go that long? I mean, what did you learn from the experience of trying to teach others? Because I'm sure it was incredibly difficult to make.
Yeah, like for myself, it's like kind of tough to like, explain things like clearly to other people so that they can like understand easier. That's one of the bigger challenges. And then also I had to do some research to like, make sure like I'm like claiming these things and that I can like back those up. So I ended up researching a lot of TASs and high level play, and finding out like why are they successful in terms of like going fast, you know?
That's neat that you say that. I like hearing that because I think a lot of people, just a general person doesn't realize like how much time and effort has to go into making something like that. I think sometimes people are like, oh, they just hit record and start talking and playing, when in actuality, you probably spent way more time offline, putting together the thing before you even recorded it.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time doing research.
That's pretty cool, man. Okay, Moss, you got anything?
Um, Let me think about it. Why don't you ask a couple more questions?
Okay, so Galamoz, I was going to ask you this. I have been, and Moss and I've talked about this too, but I've spent a lot of time in the last month or two thinking about and trying to put together stuff for specifically for like a sub-hour tutorial for newer players. And so, yeah, so instead of focusing on let me try to be clear and provide context. There's nothing wrong with any of the tutorials that are already out there. It's just that a lot of them, for example, like some of the Oats and Goats ones and Zos one and stuff like that, they're awesome. But when you first start the game, most players just don't have the mechanical ability to pull off a lot of those strats, right? So for somebody who is working on maybe that first kind of, because it kind of feels like the sub-hour time's like the first notch in your belt, right? As a runner, what do you think for that level of play? I guess two questions. Number one, what do you think would be sort of important rooms that stick out to you that would be important to practice a little bit? And number two, which of the boss fights do you think is the biggest wall when you're at that level trying to get to where you're going a little bit faster?
See, for the bosses, I would say Fantoon. Because I get the feeling that lots of newer players like try to do all these like elaborate strats like X Factors and Doppler,
Right.
and it usually doesn't go too well. So I think there should be like, more people should be more familiar with the more easier strats to execute instead of trying to do like the really fancy ones that save lots of time. And I would say for the other boss, it would be Ridley, because Ridley is pretty dangerous.
Yeah,
Especially if you're starting out.
I agree.
It can definitely end a lot of runs.
It seems to me, and I've said this for a long time, and I'm just kind of, I guess pontificating here, but it seems to me like for a newer player that Ridley and Lower Norfair in general, that portion of the run ends a lot of runs. Like I even remember when I was first starting, that was a really tough part for me. And it kind of feels like once you kind of learn that section, it actually becomes incredibly unlikely for it to end your run, especially if you're kind of playing it safe. I think Ridley is actually one of the easier fights in Old Route once you kind of understand everything that's happening. Not that it's like easy to go fast every time, but I think you know what I'm saying. Like it's a little bit easier to get through that fight than it can be with Fantoon and Dragon or something. So I do agree with you that spending time on that is very important. And I've noticed that a lot of newer players have trouble with like Bubble Mountain. So I think that might be an area where if I do a tutorial in the future that I try to spend some time on trying to find good strats for that room.
I can't really think of like specific rooms that would really hold up a newer player. Bubble Mountain would be one of them, but maybe it could be the other one. Could be like the moat if like someone's like unfamiliar with like how to shine spark.
Yeah, big time.
Because I remember in my casual play, like I tried to like skip grapple, and I just could not get over it. The moat.
You mean you didn't do a CWJ first try?
Yeah, especially as a casual player.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I can't even imagine. Like, I guess I never considered it because when I first played this game, I was in like 5th grade or whenever it came out, and I found grapple. Like now looking back on it, I can't imagine how hard that must be for a new player that has no context for the game for like what to do at that part if they don't have grapple.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Okay, so Moss, you got anything else?
I think you kind of nailed it actually with the last question.
Cool. Well, Galamoz, I think that's gonna be it for tonight, man. Thank you for being willing to come on and just talk to us and stuff. I put your tutorial, your movement tutorial in my chat, and then whenever I do a highlight of this broadcast, like to, single out the Strat chat, I'm gonna make sure to add a link to that because I think your video is very important for people to watch if they truly want to continue to get better. I think it not only just shows some strats, but I think like people's understanding of the game will improve from that. So on behalf of the rest of the community, number one, thank you for putting that together.
Absolutely.
And number two, man, we really appreciate you taking time to spend with us. It's always a pleasure watching you play and hanging out with you.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So
Thanks, Gala.
Yeah, so at this point, thanks, Gala. At this point, we're going to end our phone call here. And Moss, I'm going to call you individually back here in just 1 second, and we'll get your screen set up. Sound good?
Great. Let's do it.
All right. So once again, big shout out and thank you to Galamoz for everything and coming on the show. Let me get True Moss back on here. And we'll try to get to our strat portion of the run tonight.
All right.
All right, so yeah, just share your screen with me like normal, and let me go ahead and set up mine.
That's not the right one, sorry. That's not it.
There we go, and I've got my screen there. Okay, let me get this
That's
up.
this one. That's the thing.
There we go. All right, so at this point, let me cut to you. Yeah, everything's looking pretty good. I might have to make a small adjustment, but I'll do that while you're playing. It's not really that big of a deal. So, guys, at this point, what we're going to try to do during this strat chat is, we've been kind of theming things. So, last week or 2 weeks ago, we had Overfiend on, and so we talked a lot about GT Classic since he is the world record holder in GT Classic. This week, we had Galamoz on, and he made that great movement tutorial. So, what we decided to do for this week is instead of just focusing on old route stuff in order, we're going to talk about a few things that we think are very important for newer players to be aware of. We're going to try to show some advanced ways to pull these tricks off, and then also a few spots to where you might can do a little bit easier of a version to kind of get through some of the things for old route. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Moss, and he's going to talk you through some things, and then I'll kind of add in as we go. But Moss, what's the first thing you kind of want to show or talk to people about?
Yeah, well, I figured that the plan for tonight is to try to almost create like a glossary of moves. And so in our future videos, we can always say, oh, okay, so we're going to do a short charge here. Here's, you can always go back to this video and we'll have, timestamps in. So if you, go to the video and then it'll say short charge at, 43 minutes, and you just click on that and it'll go right to it. So it'll be like a quick way to see, explanation that's not just text-based explanation, which is kind of the thing that the wiki page is wonderful, but then you have to, there are some videos, but having not just a video but an explanation with it is also kind of a good thing. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do tonight. So really I figure we just kind of look through a couple of categories in the learn to speedrun section of the wiki page, and we'll just sort of go through everything that's in those, and we'll just kind of knock them off one at a time, and that's it.
Sounds good, man. Let's get started.
All right, where are we? So Kipp, can you actually bring up the wiki page for yourself?
I can, yes.
I was just thinking that if while I'm playing, can you just put a link to the wiki in the chat?
Yes.
And when you're playing, I'll put them in.
I will. And just for the record, I don't know why, but it's for some reason it looks differently this week on my capture. So I realize there are a few small things are cut off. I'll continue to work on that while
I see that.
showing
Okay.
that. But yeah,
No
go ahead. I'll put a link to the wiki. Go right ahead.
Okay, great. So let's start with just general movement. So the first thing is spin jumps. Pretty simple. The big thing with spin jumps is, compared to a regular jump, is that you have to be moving forward before you start a spin jump. So you notice you can run for just an instant before you start spin jumping. Spin jumping is very important you can't do wall jumps without spin jumping. One thing that's interesting about spin jump mechanics is that it's actually pretty hard to, when you're moving left to right with spin jumps, it's kind of hard to control, stop moving left to right. So if I try to move back, to the right, you often kind of start going back and forth a lot. So one thing to note is that breaking out of spin, you can do it 6 or 7 ways. You can break out of spin by shooting. You can break out of spin by pushing up. You can push down. You can push either angle button. I think that's everything. That's all the ways that you can break out of spin. But every time when you break out of spin, it's usually much easier to drop straight down. So anytime you're trying to drop straight down, breaking out of spin usually makes it easier. One place I think of is after you get supers, the first super room. After that, it's when you drop down to go into Pink Brinstar. If you do spin jumps down, it's really easy to just keep going left, right, and land on the platforms. So breaking out of spin, it's a good thing to know. Once you break out of spin, you can't go back into spin until you land on the ground again. So that's the important thing to know about spin. You can buffer a spin jump, which is also kind of cool. If you're holding jump, so I'm on the ground right now and I have jump held. I use B for jump. So right now I'm holding jump, but I'm on the ground standing. If you just push in the opposite direction that you're facing, so in this case I push right, it automatically does a spin jump. This can be useful in a couple of situations. So as I land, if you want to land on the ground and then spin jump back the opposite way, you don't actually have to even release jump when you land then. Just stand and then push back. This can be useful. It's not a lot of places that's very useful, but you can use it going through doors. And it's most useful coming down off of the first elevator in the game. We can use this as an example. So pretending that this is an elevator, if you hold jump and right, so I'm just holding jump and right, you automatically will spin jump off. So you don't have to start running to spin jump off of an elevator. I only use it in series. You could probably use it in the elevator in Brinstar, but that's kind of the main place to do it. Anything to add on that, Kipp?
Yeah, one thing that I will add real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize up front. I've told the story to the people in my stream 100 times, but y'all might see a few times where it says it'll flash no signal because I have an issue with my my video monitor, and unfortunately the part that I ordered to fix it is still literally lost in the mail. They still couldn't find it today. But just one quick thing to point out, and I think this is really helpful to know for newer beginning players. And remember that one thing I'm a big advocate of is when you're a new player, you don't necessarily have to try the hardest thing in the world. Okay, you just need to grow accustomed to kind of controlling Samus. So one thing to remember is that when you are spin jumping, if you move left to right, Samus's movement is much more volatile than if she is in a standing position. And what I mean by that is every time you press left or right, she will kind of move more and sort of more aggressively when she's spinning than if she's standing upright. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Notice that when I spin jump here, if I press left to right, you can literally see the screen, shaking a good bit. You can kind of use that left wall over there as a reference point, for when you're spinning, it moves fairly quickly, right? But if you're just in an upright position, you press left and right, I'm pressing the buttons exactly the same. You'll notice that it doesn't really move the screen very much because she will literally kind of just turn around in place instead of moving so aggressively. So if there are places, for instance, if you're a fairly new runner and you're not super accustomed to ledge grabbing, you don't think it goes very well, or maybe with the climb or something, it might actually be to your benefit at first to just kind of get used to her jumping, and you can hold L to stop yourself from spinning, and then you can just kind of guide her a little bit easier to a location. I find that that's something that can be very helpful. So even now, if there are places where I'm spinning and I need to get very quick control of her in the middle of a jump and I don't need to ledge grab anything, I'll just simply break out of it by pressing L, and that way I get a little bit more control out of Samus. All right, Moss,
Yeah,
tossing it back to
absolutely.
you.
Great. Yeah, actually, just to go on that point, the same thing. Yeah, if you bring it over to me, like just looking at the platforms in the climb, like if you're planning to jump through, jump in the climb, straight jumping is way easier to control for sure because you do not have that. Like as soon as you release the direction that you're pushing, so if I'm pushing right here, as soon as I release it, you stop dead in your tracks. But if I'm spin jumping, you notice as soon as if I release the button, I still continue in that direction. So it's really easy, especially on these little platforms. If you're trying to jump on those, it's really easy to try to land on it, and then you overcompensate, and you're kind of doing this sort of thing. So breaking out a spin, it's part of ledge grabbing, which we're going to talk about a lot. Ledge grabbing is probably the most important thing I would say to really understand. But one of the things that's great with ledge grabbing, even if you're doing big ledge grabs, something like that, that's not even really a ledge grab, but it's like the mechanic of it. Is it stops you straight on top of the platform. So if you're spin jumping and you want to land on this thing, you don't want to have to do this sort of back and forth kind of thing and potentially miss it. You know, you can break out a spin however you want to. Shooting does it up, down, either angle button. So that's a good thing to note about spin jump as well.
And Moss, if you don't mind, like to your point real quick, you know, I keep mentioning this a lot of times. You know, you're not going to just build an entire skill set for the game in a couple days or a couple weeks, right? Like there's all these different things that you have to learn how to do. And so even if you're new to the game and you're not like super accustomed to ledge grabbing and stuff like that, I think what Moss is talking about is very important. Just the idea that you can stop yourself from moving in such a slippery fashion in the air by breaking that spin and then having a little bit more control, that's a good foundation for then eventually, you know, moving in another direction. And it also gets you accustomed to your method of how to do that. Like personally, I always press L, but that doesn't mean that's the only way. Some people like to press R. So I've seen people that like to shoot to do that kind of thing. So it's just a good way to kind of build a skill set that will transfer to other things later.
Yeah. The only other thing to add, I had mentioned buffers before. Oh, shoot. I got to clear this room now. 1 second. So I mentioned buffers before, meaning you can just hold jump and a direction, and you will get an automatic wall jump. That works well through door transitions as well. So if you run straight through a door, and then in the next door, before you gain control of Samus, if you hold the direction towards the door, so in this case, pressing right, pressing back towards the way I came, and jump. If you hold them both, you will automatically spin jump. And this can be really useful in a couple of rooms that you need to climb up the wall of the door that you come in. It's a really easy way to get a free spin jump. Ready to move on?
Go right ahead, man.
All right. So the next thing is wall jumps. Wall jumps, like I said earlier, you have to be in spin jump in order to wall jump. This is usually the room people talk about with wall jumps. It's the most famous place. I'm just going to clear out the room a little bit first. The biggest thing about wall jumps, and it's been said many times before, but I'll say it again, you have to push away from the wall before you push jump. You can't push them at the same time. You have to first push away and then push jump. So what you're looking for is there's a specific sprite when Samus is pushed away from the wall. So when I push away from the wall, you'll see Samus's back. And it's sort of in a spin jump position right there, where you see her back kind of facing towards you. And if you're coming from the other side, you'll see her face towards you. It's a very specific, it sort of freezes on that animation for a few frames. When that animation is visible, that's your window to wall jump. So you have to first start that animation by pushing away from the wall and then push jump. That's the big thing with wall jump, away and then jump. You can delay how quickly you push jump. And in some situations, it's actually better to delay pushing away from the wall or jumping late after pushing away from the wall. But it's good to understand that there is a bit of a window. You don't have to do it immediately after you push away. There is a little bit of a window. So wall jumps take a long time to get really fast at. The big thing I would say with wall jumps is you don't have to go crazy fast. You don't have to do like 17 wall jumps. Like, like Sweet Num is the person I always go back to for wall jumps because his wall jumps are crazy. And he goes like, really, really fast and they're really clean and that's great. But I generally recommend do pretty long wall jumps, especially when you're starting out. You want to try to start wall jumping before you start losing your upward momentum. So after the wall jump, obviously at a certain point, you start slowing down before you descend back down. So somewhere around the peak of your jump is a good place to kind of start aiming your next wall jump if you're trying to go up the same wall. Yeah. Anything else for that, Kipp?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm going to discuss the delayed wall jump that you were referring to. I want to show like a practical example. So, so basically everything that Moss said is 100% on the money. Wall jumps is, or I guess wall jumping is an essential skill of the game. In fact, I would argue that it's probably one of the most important ones to kind of get comfortable with. And the way that I like to describe it to newer players is not only do you want to know how to do it and feel comfortable, but it needs to become something that you don't even think about. Like it needs to be something that you're not.
It's muscle memory.
Yeah, you're not concerned. Like, once you get enough experience and you're running it, you never think like, what if I miss this wall jump or something like that. You just, expect to get it and you do. But as he pointed out, there are different types of wall jumps in very specific circumstances that are required to get to places, and you either need to not delay or delay. So you have a little bit of a window. You can immediately, you can look at my inputs up there, you can kind of immediately press jump, but you actually have a bit of a window where you can press away and then press jump a little bit slower. And what will happen is Samus will actually get further away than she normally would. So one way to see this is in this particular room. This is the worst room in the game. I'm going to approach this room kind of RBO or new route style where you don't have space jump like you normally would in old route. And so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to wall jump up to this little part right here. And basically to be able to get to this little ledge to get up here, you have to do one of those delayed wall jumps. So I'm trying to do it roughly around this little crack that you see that I keep jumping on right here. But what happens if I immediately wall jump is I won't get there. Like I can't get to the right far enough really with a regular wall jump typically. So you have to do a little bit of a delayed one. That way you can reach over there. So that's a practical application of the delayed wall jump. And you'll note, like I'm really bad at this strat. I haven't really been practicing it, and I haven't done a ton of new route stuff. But here it is in action. You can see it. I'm going to reload the room and try to do the closest thing to the new route strat that I can. But basically you drop this power bomb, and then while you got the iframes, if you jump high enough, you can then do your delayed wall jump to get up here and never actually have to kill any of these guys. Like I kind of messed it up there, but you get the idea. So basically once you get in here, you can actually jump through these iframes and use that delay. If you do it at the right time, then you'll make it up there. Obviously, I can sit here and do it a bunch. You get the idea. So basically, delayed wall jumps are important here. I can distinctly remember another spot where it's important, like if you're running low ice and you don't have high jump boots, and I think you're at Mount Everest, there's a way to wall jump up to that door that saves a lot of time as opposed to doing a gravity jump or something like that.
The faster red tower in old any percent is that way too. Like there's a delayed shot jump there too. Yeah,
good point. You talking about the one where you shoot through the thing and then immediately down grab or whatever?
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's right.
Cool. All right, so Moss, I'm going to toss it back over to you and we can continue.
Great. Okay, we're going to look at mock balls next. The next thing in the list is damage boosting, but I think mock balls are a better thing to look at first because they're a little bit more important, I think. So just before I do, we've got some, other great runners in here. Dingus is here, among others. And so just to remind people, if you have stuff to say and, things that we can read and, comment on, please feel free. Just type away, guys. If you have things that you want to say about how to do certain strats, that's great. That's what we want. So keep that in mind. Okay, so mock balls. This is an interesting room. I like to practice or recommend this room for a practice when you're first learning a couple of things. This is the room before Golden 4. It's nice because it's long, it's flat, and the ceiling is consistent. So it means that you can practice full jump mock balls. You have a lot of room to practice, short charging, whatever else. It's kind of an interesting room to practice these things in. So mock balls. The basic explanation for a mock ball is that when you're in ball, you can't move very fast. But when you're running, you move really fast. And so what you can do is you can kind of keep your run speed in ball form if you do a specific trick. And it sort of is based off of two mechanics that are in the game. The first one is that if you morph as you hit the ground, you don't bounce. So this is what we call a soft morph. Or rather, this is a hard morph. This is what we don't want. So if you morph up in the air, you notice that Samus has a little bounce. And you'll usually hear it too. That's another thing you can listen for. But if you morph right as you hit the ground, you don't bounce. And that's called a soft morph. And that's really, really important. It's a good thing to start practicing when you're working on mock balls. Just practicing morphing as you hit the ground. You have the window actually for it is pretty big. You can go a little bit early. If you notice that you end up crouching or end up landing, you probably just morphed a little too late. So soft morphing means that you don't bounce. Another thing that's interesting with this game is that your speed, if you're in ball form, you can maintain your speed of your run through your first bounce. So if I'm moving quickly, bounce. The first bounce actually keeps the same speed that you had, and then on the second bounce, you lose all your speed. If I go into blue suit, you might be able to see it a little better. One stop. So on that second one, I lost all my speed. I lost blue suit. So if you tie those two pieces of information together, that the first bounce keeps your speed and a soft morph allows you to not bounce, that means that you can then tie those two together and get the same speed you were running at in ball form. So the basic way to do this is you have to firstly practice soft morphing. The next thing is when you're moving forward to do a mock ball, you still have to push down 2 times in order to morph. But when you hit the ground on the second one, you have to roll your thumb from the down position to the forward position. Everyone usually says it's like a fireball in Street Fighter, a Hadouken move, or a quarter circle forward. So when you jump in the air, you have to make sure you hold jump the whole way through. So I never let go of jump. And then I push down, and then down, forward. Down, roll to forward. So you have to make sure you soft morph, down, forward. It takes a little bit of time to learn this. And this is, like I said, a good room to practice it in because you can do full jumps here, and you have a lot of time to learn that. So just practicing that to start with, running, full jump, down, down, forward. You can push the down button, the first down, you can tap it very early, down, down, forward. It's, I believe, a little bit slower. I think when you break out a spin jump, you actually lose a little speed. So ideally, you want to do it really late, down, down, forward. But at the beginning, full jump, down, down, forward. That's the way that you kind of start doing it. So that's a full jump mock ball. Anytime there's a ceiling above you that you can jump like this, you can do a full jump mock ball. It's a really important strat in the game. It's used specifically to get super missiles early. Is there before we jump into like short hop mock balls, Kipp, is there anything you wanted to add to general mock ball talk?
Not anything super important. The only thing I will say, I've mentioned this before, I think even in previous strat chats, especially if you're brand new and you need to get a mock ball, like in particular I'm thinking of, there's really one mock ball that's 100% required, right? The early Supers one. So again, everybody has different methods, but just giving yourself time to set up for the Hadouken move, I find it very easy that if you just hold jump in a room that you need to get a mock ball and you just bonk against the ceiling, as soon as you bonk against the ceiling, that's a good time to go ahead and tap down one time to get that aiming down position.
Yeah, that's a very good
And
good point.
That way you don't have to like press down and then down to the left like back to back immediately, it gives yourself a little bit of time. So notice that Moss right now is literally doing that even in a room where the ceiling is incredibly high. So it just gives you some time to get prepared for that, that transition or whatever.
Yeah. So the next step for mock balls is a short hop mock ball, meaning that you don't have to do a full jump. You do have to hold the jump button in order to perform the mock ball. But if you just hold jump the whole way through, that would mean you'd be limited to doing mock balls on jumps where you're doing a full jump. And if you have high jump boots on, it's going to be pretty impractical in a lot of rooms. So there is a way to do a little jump and mock ball, or a really tiny one. In theory, you can get you can get super small as you learn to practice it. It is a lot of inputs though. The tricky thing is you have to release jump at the desired height that you want to, like the max height you want to get to. Say I want to jump. I'm going to use this, the middle of the X as an example. If I want to jump to about that height, I have to release jump there. And then you want to press jump again. And it's really important to press and hold jump again here, because if you don't press jump again, when you press the down button, you're going to lose all of your momentum. So you have to make sure you, once you release jump, you have to press and hold it again in order to perform the mock ball. So I'm holding jump all the way through my mock ball into my roll when I press it the second time. So it's kind of tricky because there is a lot of buttons. You have to kind of go jump, jump, down, down, right. It's a lot of stuff. And depending on where you put your inputs, if you put the down button in the middle between your first and second jump button, you're going to lose all your speed. It's really, it can be really easy to lose your speed. So what I suggest is make sure that you repress the jump button almost immediately. So as soon as you release the jump button, I just put my thumb back down on it right away. And then I go into down, down, right. You can do that in this room still using a full jump though. So starting off with a short hop mock ball, you can still do a full jump. And at the top of the ceiling, that's where you can just release jump and press it again. Press, down, down. Or let's try that again. Full jump, release, press, down, down. It's a lot of stuff, but this is probably one of the best rooms to practice that sort of thing because you've got a flat ceiling. And as you get better, you can kind of start, giving yourself limits. Like I want to not get, I don't want to touch the ceiling. I want to be below these lights as a first reference, or at the lights as an example, and then at above the center of the X, at the X, and then just barely clearing the light or something like that. So as you get better with it, it takes a little bit of time to work on it, but it becomes a muscle memory thing. After a while, you can do pretty short mock balls, and I don't really mess up mock balls anymore, really. I don't think most runners do. It just becomes a thing that you just take for granted, but it takes a lot of practice for sure. If you have speed, you can do a same thing. A speed ball is the same thing as a mock ball. It's just you have speed booster going, and that can be useful to go through a couple of blocks that in certain situations, but it's not very practical for most things that you need to do for beginner runners. Anything else, Kipp?
Yeah, I'll try to point something out that is just sort of an addendum to what you're talking about. Basically, what you'll see, and I'm not great at this, but I just kind of want to explain how it works so that people understand and they know how to practice it. But one thing that is pretty difficult for newer runners that you'll see a lot of experienced runners do is being able to shoot. They'll jump, then shoot, and then still get a mock ball. The basic thing that I just want to point out is not just that move in general, but just why are you allowed to do that, and how does the stuff work? And I kind of learned this from asking Fusta about this one time, and he showed it to me and explained it. Basically, I'm going to try to jump over the ship, but notice if I let go of jump, if you look at my inputs on the top, B is my jump. If I let go of jump, but I keep holding to the right or left, whatever direction I'm facing, I don't lose any momentum, okay? So you don't have to hold jump through the whole jump to actually keep your momentum. Now, what will happen, though, is once you release jump, you won't move vertically anymore, okay? So you won't move vertically, but you can still move at the same speed horizontally. So what ends up happening is if you want to shoot, you can shoot or whatever, but then at that point you'll have to re-hit B or your jump button, and then try to do your down inputs. Basically, you won't lose speed as long as you're holding left or right. So as long as you're holding left or right after you release your jump, you'll still hold your horizontal speed, but you don't want to go for like a mock ball or press down until after you've already pressed jump again. That way your momentum will stay, so I can jump, release, hold jump again, and then my momentum maintains. So it's kind of a complex thing, and it kind of feels a little funky, but once you get used to it, you can start shooting and then still get a mock ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, can I make a bit of a more general explanation of that? Really?
Yeah, go for it.
So when you're jumping in a spin jump, there are two buttons you're pushing, forward and jump. And if you hold either one of them, you will continue your forward momentum. Let me go to an area where there's some space. You will continue your forward momentum in spin jump if you're holding. You actually don't need to hold either of them. Like you can, in spin jump, if I just let go of both buttons, I continue to move forward. But if I break out of spin, you need to hold either the forward button or the jump button when you break out of spin, because whichever button you use to break out of spin, be it shot, angle, down, or up, the second you release that button that broke you out of spin, if you're not holding forward or jump, then you're going to lose momentum. So it's actually when you release the button that causes you to lose momentum. So if I jump in the air and I release all the buttons, if I hold the R button, you'll notice I actually keep going until I release the R button. So I jump, hold R. It's when I release R. It's kind of hard actually in this area because it's not a lot of stuff to see, but hold R. It's when I release R that actually I will lose my momentum. And likewise, if I jump, hold down, release down, it's when you release down that you actually lose the momentum. Okay. So you have to make sure you're either holding jump or forward when you release the button that breaks you out of spin.
Yeah, and to Moss's point here, like part of the reason I know some of this seems complex is just one thing we need to point out is like, if you don't know why you're missing a trick or a move, you're probably not going to get it, right? And it's going to take even longer. So having a sort of a technical understanding of why the mechanics are what they are will increase your learning curve or make your learning curve a lot faster. Like some
of the stuff, like the first couple of times you're playing this game, you'll be like, what, huh?
Yeah.
And then you'll come back to this and then be like, oh, okay, now I get what that means.
Exactly. I mean, I remember the first time I saw Fuzda explain this to me, it was like I learned something I never knew about the mechanics, and I even had like a relatively fast time already at the point that he showed me that. So there's a lot of intricacy. And I guess to a certain degree, this would be a good place to say, like, wow, what a masterpiece game, right?
Yes.
Just so much in depth.
The physics are perfect in this game. The physics are just perfect.
Yeah. So anyway, you can keep going with that if you want to, Moss, but I'll let you also move on to whatever you want to cover.
Yeah, let's go to the next thing. Let's talk quickly about Moonwalk and Moonfall. Most people didn't use this until very recently. It's Moonwalk. If you're holding the fire button, you can now, if you push out backward, you can walk backward. You have to turn this on in the menu at the beginning of the game. I think by default it's not on, but so if you turn it on, it allows you to do this now. This until very recently wasn't used for anything, and one of the main reasons is often you want to hold a charge and be able to turn around, and especially like if you're learning to X Factor, Fantoon. There's a couple other places where you're, wanting to do some X factors and you need to hold a charge and turn around. So that kind of made it a little more complicated. But moonwalking has led to this kind of exploit called Moonfall. It's the main reason that you get Moonwalk. I'll just show you guys what Moonfall is if you haven't already seen it. I'd hope you'd seen it by now, but it looks. Oh, right. Let's go back to sleep, Zevis. Oh shoot. I'll just have to clear these guys out first, I guess. Okay. Oh, but these guys are gonna. What a pain! I forgot that you can't really. It's a little hard to show this off when all the pirates are in the room. So Moonfall looks something, damn it. Something like this. You drop crazy fast down. It's mainly like first new runners, this is the place you do it. Yeah, if you're going to learn it, do it here, and that's about it. There is a very, very easy buffer strat for doing the Moonfall in this room. The inputs are pretty specific. You have to hold a charge shot. You have to hold an angle button. You have to start moving backwards. And when you get near the edge of the platform, you have to jump. And then I think you also have to release some buttons as you do the jump. Something like that. It's pretty hard to kind of get consistent, but there is a buffer strat in this room that I learned from good old Overfiend. And it's the way you come into this room. If you come into this room facing left, so you're dropping down. If you hold jump, shot, and the angle button as you come into the room, just hold all three. When you land, you just hold to the right. And as soon as you start moving a little bit, all you have to do is release the shot button. That's it. Just release shot. So I'm holding these three buttons, shot, jump, and angle. I'm going to walk a little bit and then just release shot. So just a little bit, release shot. And it works every time. So coming into this room, it's a really easy way to set this up. So I'm not going to be able to actually do it because these pirates are going to be back. But let's say, well, actually, maybe I can. I don't know if this works. I'll put Zebus back to sleep again. So if you come into the room sort of like this, I'm just going to save here. So I'm going to hold, as I'm coming into the room, I'm going to hold jump, shot, and angle. So I'm holding all three, and then I just push right and release shot. And it works every time. It's really, really consistent. So if you want to learn to do Moonfall, you can, like, if you want to put it into your run from right away, and I don't know, what do you think, Kipp? I kind of recommend just doing it right away, because otherwise you have to relearn stuff, right?
I would say if you're brand new to the game, it would probably be a good decision to just go ahead and do it. There's no question that it can help you in terms of a couple of strats, like the Moonfall and the climb. But it also, can, from what I understand, now I don't personally use it yet. I plan to implement it eventually. But, it can actually be beneficial for some of the boss fights too. And so,
Ridley in particular, yeah.
Yeah, so if you just kind of like never learn the original way, it's not as big of an adjustment, as opposed to, doing it one way and then trying to do it something different later.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's move on to damage boosting, I guess. So where's a good place to show damage boosting? I guess I could go to the Hellway. Is maybe a good place. While I'm doing that, Kipp, if you want to go somewhere else to just show off damage boosting, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I was actually... I think the Hellway's perfect because you can go ahead and say what you want to say about it. I'm probably going to mention that room as well, and then the next room where you get the power bombs.
Right.
And we'll just kind of show the difference between, kind of the windows that you have to get the damage boost. But in particular, these two rooms are probably, especially when you're like new to the game and you're just trying to learn damage boosting, these are probably the two most important rooms for it.
Okay, so damage boosting is pretty interesting in Super Metroid. A lot of games have damage boosting. It just means when you take damage, you get knocked back. And a lot of games, when you get hit by something, it just sort of jumps you back, right? If you think, Castlevania, Ninja Gaiden, all those games, there's usually a knockback just so that it doesn't allow you to just run right through your enemy, essentially. So, in some games, if you turn around, it'll actually push you in the direction you want to go. So if you're trying to go to the right, you can turn around to the left and take damage off a spike, and it'll push you that way. But you can actually extend the distance that you do a boost. It'll look like this, just to show you. So you notice, like, once I took damage, I go flying, like, really quickly across the room. This is done by holding the jump button, and after you've taken damage, pushing the direction that away from the way Samus is facing. So currently I'm facing left. So I'm going to jump, take damage. I'm going to continue to hold jump. And after I take damage, I'm just going to push right. So hold jump, push right. And that's essentially all that damage boosting is, just holding jump and pushing in the direction that you're not facing. At the beginning, when you're first learning it, you probably want to just stop in your place, turn around, jump straight up, and pretty much limit your damage boosts to situations where you can, for the most part, jump straight up. There are some places where you have to kind of jump forward to do damage boosts, and that gets kind of tricky because you have to, if you want to go, in this case, to the left here, I have to jump to the left, and then just before I take damage off of this spike, I have to push right, and then I have to take the damage, and then I have to push left after I take damage. So you have to turn around before you take damage, and then turn back or push the direction you're wanting to head after you take the damage. It looks something like this. It does take practice to get used to. The window for pushing the direction button after you've taken damage, it's roughly between 4 and 8 frames. It kind of depends on what you're taking the damage from. If your damage source is a spike or electricity or something kind of similar to that, kind of like a static item, I guess. I believe it's like 8 frames, maybe 7 or 8 frames. So it's much easier to do a damage boost off of a spike than it is off of an enemy. I believe it's 4 frames off of an enemy, maybe 5 or 4 or 5 frames off of an enemy to do the boost after you take damage. And an enemy's particle is even less. So, for example, if a cack attack shoots a spike and you want a damage boost off the spike, it's only 3 or 4 frames. So it gets less and less. There it is. 5 for enemy, 4 for projectile, and 10 for spike. Thank you, Dragon. So spike's much, much easier to do it off of. 10 frames. That's a pretty big window. So when you're first learning, damage boosting off of spikes is pretty free. I mean, not free, but it's not too hard to do. Doing boosts off of the projectiles are much harder, though. Anything else to say, Kipp?
Yeah, let me just kind of talk through a little bit about, especially if you're a beginner, one thing to think about. Now, we could go through, just about everything there is and talk about, at some point you just kind of have to get used to it, right? And it's just learning how to feel it. But one way to kind of get accustomed to the feel of damage boosting and realizing the difference between, as Edie pointed out, like enemies and projectiles and spikes, I think the first way to do it would be to use spikes. And this particular room is great. So if you have the practice ROM, you can just like come in here and just do a little save state and just jump straight up, kind of like Moss was talking about. And, all you got to do is just keep holding your jump button and just kind of get accustomed to what it looks like, right? And so what you want to practice at first is really train yourself not to press away. You're holding jump. Don't press right until you have definitely seen Samus take the damage. I think when I first started, and everybody's different, but when I first started, I think a lot of the failures that I had for damage boosting was because I was trying too hard or too fast. Like it seems like I got to go really fast. You just kind of have to get accustomed to the fact that you have some time. Notice that as soon as I get hit, I press at that time. That time I actually waited a second, and I still got it. So the 10 frames, at the start you might think, oh, it's only like a sixth of a second or whatever. So it seems very fast, and technically it is. But in the world of speedrunning, that's actually pretty lenient once you get accustomed to it. So this is a good thing to learn. And then another thing to kind of be aware of is that you don't have to just be standing still. I mean, I know Moss has already showed all this stuff, but I'm just going to kind of go through how I look at it too. Like this in particular is a little bit harder of one to get, but at the same time is very effective in a lot of different runs. Running into this room and like spin jumping and then, pressing right and then back to the left while holding jump. So once you start getting into a little bit more of the advanced ones, this is a good one to do. There are even ways, and I'm not the expert to talk about this, but there are ways to do like delayed kind of deboost where you get like a little bit more horizontal room. But just knowing that these exist is very helpful, and seeing that you have like like for example, with this one, you have some iframes to get through this little crab. This can be a really good one to kind of add into your run when you get more comfortable. And you can even, like a good strat for this room, not only an old route, but like, things like low ice and even new route and stuff, is to like get a double D boost through the room. So, you can practice that eventually. And there's even faster ways to doing it than what I'm doing right now. But, you don't have to do the fastest strat. So real quick, the other room that's right down here that deboosting, especially when you're first starting out, can be very helpful is this room where you're getting the first power bomb
this
pack.
room is really. I actually find this is more of the Hellway than the Hellway itself. I find this room more frustrating and more punishing.
Yeah, and I will acknowledge, like, I don't want to go too deep into it because, we can't cover every tiny detail, but doing it with high jump boots or without is a little bit different of a feel. So if you're doing old route, when you enter this room, you'll have high jump boots. If you're doing low ice or new route or something like that, when you enter this room, you will not. So a good way to feel the difference between a spike deboost and an enemy deboost is to show the difference between the Hellway and then this room. So in this room, if you're newer, what you're trying to eventually learn how to do is deboost off these little guys so that you don't get knocked back and then have to get hit more, stuff like that. And especially when you start removing the early ice component from your old route run, which a lot of people when they first start are getting Spazer, and so therefore they're also getting early ice. They can just come in here and freeze those enemies. But if you're trying to go a little bit faster or you don't have the ice beam, you kind of have to grow accustomed. But one thing you got to realize about this room is if you just hold jump the entire time and bonk your head, you have a little bit of time. You have a little bit more time than you would think. So you got to basically turn yourself around to the right to face, the wall or the door that you came in on. And then you have some time to then get hit and press to the left. And you just kind of have to wait on it. A lot of times people will still try to go too early and they'll fall through, the enemy or something like that. So just give yourself some time. Try to wait until Samus is just about to land. And there's different methods of doing this. I've seen some people like try to break out of spin to do it. There's different methods for you to do it. But just know that this is a good room to practice and kind of get the feel for that 10 to 5 frame window. And obviously you're trying to get it on the way out as well.
Yeah, this is like the damage boost section of the game, really. Like for new runners, this is where you do damage boosts, right?
Yeah.
I would suggest, we were talking about, breaking the hour. You could probably, for an hour run, you could probably say that you could limit most of your damage boosting to just damage boosting off of spikes. And you could probably have a pretty, as a general rule, learn to damage boost off of spikes and maybe that one room. And that would probably be all the damage boosting you'd really need to do a pretty consistent, sub-hour run.
I'm sorry, Nintoaster brings up a point. He asks, is mid-air morphing considered a form of deboost? And I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, sure. I don't think it, unless I'm thinking of something different, it doesn't necessarily have the same mechanics, but in terms of what you press. But it is good to know that you can jump and morph into a ball in midair and get hit and continue to bounce up. That is a good strategy to use. In particular, 2 rooms in all route that I'm thinking of are when you get early supers, if you accidentally don't get your wall jump and you're trying to jump up, to the level to go get the supers, sometimes there can be waivers up there that will knock you back down. So
leaving Kraid too.
Yeah, and leaving Kraid was the second one with the key hunter. So if you find yourself in a position where, and you'll train yourself to get accustomed to knowing if you're going to miss those or not, or when you miss them, if you have time or not. So if you know that you don't have time, that you're going to get hit by some of those creatures, you can just mid-air morph.
I would almost say more that the mid-air morph is almost the opposite of a deep, because it sort of removes the fact that you get knocked back. And it's you kind of get knocked back, but you can continue your upward momentum or your forward momentum if you get deboost or get damaged when you're in a midair in an air ball.
Yeah. So it's
kind of it's a little different, but kind of the same. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just good to be aware that mechanic is in the game. And so if you ever need to keep your upward momentum and you're going to lose it from getting hit, midair morphing will get you through perfectly.
Yeah. All right. Shine sparking. I'll post it in. Shine sparking is lots of fun. I love shine sparking. You need speed booster to do shine sparks. So you run fast enough to get blue suit. You crouch, and that you have a shine spark charge when you crouch. You have 3 seconds to execute a shine spark after that. So run until blue suit, crouch, and then you have 3 seconds to execute a shine spark. You can shine spark in 3 directions. And in those 3 directions, there are kind of 2 ways that you can do it. You can do it from the ground or in midair. So we'll talk about the ground ones first. They're pretty simple. Probably the hardest one is the horizontal one. So if you just want to do a shine spark up, you can just push jump and it will work. Release all their other inputs, stand still, and push jump, and you're going to go straight up. You will, it delays a little bit because jump before Samus actually shine spark. She does a little jump like that, a little hop, and then she goes up. If you push up, and then jump, you're going to go straight up, immediately up. So up, press jump, and you'll go flying quickly. Diagonal, if you hold angle up and push jump, you have to push them both together. So stop with an angle. Oh wait, charge up your shine spark. Hold angle and jump, and you go up. Horizontal is a little different in some ways. You have to push jump first to do a horizontal shine spark. And this is, I think, where it becomes, this is where people kind of have issue with understanding it. Because the other 2, to go up, you push up, then tap jump, and it'll work. To go diagonal, you hold R and then push jump. So to do horizontal, you have to push jump first. Because you have to be standing in order to do, like, you can't be moving forward. So you have to push jump first, and then you push right or left. The important thing, though, is you have to make sure that you're holding jump. If you release jump before you push the direction, let me show you. If I just tap jump, and then I push the direction, it doesn't register a forward shine spark. So you have to make sure that you're holding jump, and then while you're holding, continue to hold jump and push forward. So it's almost a little backwards from the others. Jump, then forward. But it's very important that you hold jump. Okay, in the air, I would say that it's actually the same thing, that up and angle are easier and horizontal is harder. So in the air, if you're jumping, just push up and you'll shine spark up. So again, kind of the same thing as if you're in the air, all you have to do is push up. If you're holding jump when you push up, you also negate that little hop animation. In the air, to do a diagonal one, all you have to do is push the angle button. So that's also pretty easy. So in the air, push angle. I think it works either with holding jump. Okay, no. So yes. You have to make sure that you're holding jump and angle in order to do the angle one. So if you're not holding, if you're in the air and you just push angle without holding jump, you're going to go straight up. So you have to make sure in the air, you push both of them. You can push them in either order, though. You can push angle and then jump. Make sure that you hold them both, though. Or jump, then angle. It works for both. And the hardest one is doing a horizontal shine spark in the air. So there are 2 ways to trigger a shine spark in the air. You have to break out a spin in order to activate a shine spark in the air. And there are 2 inputs that will do it. The aiming up, so just pushing the up button will break you out of spin and charge a shine spark. And angle up, so typically R will break you out of spin and start the shine spark. You can do either one. I really, really, really swear by using angle and not using up. But I know people like this is sort of a contentious topic in some ways, because I know there are some people that really swear by up. Kipp, what do you do?
Up for life, baby.
Really? Okay. So yeah, in between the 2 of us, there's a difference. The reason that I like using angle is it means that you don't have to ever release your forward button. So if I'm want to shine spark to the left, to the right, and I'm jumping to the right first, all I have to do is keep holding right, tap R, and then push jump. The important thing with this is that you have to make sure that you release the R button before you push jump. So to do a diagonal shine spark, you hold R and then push jump.
Okay, and real quick, Tomas, like, first of all, I'm just kind of being funny about Up for Life. Like, I actually don't think either one is correct. It just comes down to what you're comfortable with.
Sure.
They both do the same thing. But both of them have their advantages and disadvantages, and it just comes down to how comfortable are you with the motion of each. As Moss just pointed out, you have to let go of R if you use it, because if you accidentally keep holding it down, you'll just end up sparking up diagonally, which can be problematic. But the problem with the up is, it's actually very similar in that you can accidentally tap up twice or press something wrong, and you end up sparking. You end up goop sparking or something like that in a way that you don't intend. So either one can fail if you don't get used to the rhythm of the way that each one requires you to do. And so it just kind of comes down to whatever you're comfortable with or what you find intuitive.
Yes. Though angle is right. Angle is the right option. So the reason I would say, especially like if you're looking at Dragon as an example, if you're trying to run under Dragon, jump in the air, turn around, and then shine spark through Dragon. So kind of like if you're doing a perfect Dragon shine spark tactic. In order to do that, you have to, if you're aiming using the aim up button, you have to jump into the air, turn left, release jump, push up, now release up, push left, and then push the jump button again in order to trigger it. So it's a lot of inputs. And if you do any of them together or in the wrong sequence, you're going to spark straight up. There is a chance with the angle button that you will do an angled jump, but I don't find I do it very often. Like if you're very specific on tapping it before you push jump, it's a lot, I find it doesn't mess up as often. And so we're using that same situation. If you're trying to jump under Dragon, jump up, turn around, and shine spark to the side. If you're using angle, all you have to do is jump in the air, turn left, continue to hold left. You never have to release left. Tap R and push jump. So it's 4 buttons as opposed to a couple more, actually, I guess. Because you do have to release I guess I have to release jump as well. So maybe forget it. Maybe Kipp's is better. But I find that it's really easy to use R. When I used to do full halfy, I don't do an old route anymore. But if you're trying to do ocean fly, to shoot and do time the shine spark, if you're trying to use up, it's like a little bit tricky. Whereas if you do ocean fly with the angle button, your left hand just holds right. You never have to move your left hand at all. So it puts the trick in one hand as opposed to a combination of two. Anyways, this is, like I said, a contentious topic, but I would suggest try a little bit of both. See which one works better for you. And that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I just kind of consider it almost like, this isn't a apples to apples comparison, obviously, but it's almost like playing drum set. It's like you can do match grip or traditional. They're both going to, end up doing what you need it to do, but it just kind of comes down to how you feel or what seems intuitive to you. For me personally, like the way that my brain works, the R is way more complex and I have to think about it way harder. Whereas like the rhythm of just doing an input on the D-pad alone makes sense to me. So it just kind of depends on how you want to look at it. I have a couple things I want to talk about with shine sparking, but is there anything left in general that you want to say, Moss?
Not really. It's actually, I liked that room that I was practicing in before with the room before G4. It's a good room to practice mid-air shine sparks because you're not going to waste all your health all the time. And it doesn't take a long time to shoot all the way up into the ceiling and fall back down.
Yeah.
That's a good place to practice as well.
So real quick, let me show everybody. There's one main thing, and I'm going to gear this in particular towards new players. Okay, so people that are, just getting into running Super Metroid or don't have as much experience. I'm going to show you where I think the vast majority of players make mistakes with shine sparking, and then I'm going to show you 2 quick places where it's going to be like very important that you understand not only how to do the shine spark in the air, but also a quick reference about 1 and 2 tapping, which I'm not going to do a huge thing on tapping right now. I would definitely recommend Moss to do that. And plus, we could sit here all day long on these things because short charging is incredibly difficult. But I will show you a method. I think Gambrinus just made a point to it. I will show you what I refer to as like a very beginner-friendly method for getting short charges in Dragon's Room that I actually came up with myself. And I still actually use it. It's very, very, beginner friendly, but it's still very effective. So the first thing I want to point out is if you look at the top left of my screen, you see that 180 number. What that is that's the short charge timer that's in the info HUD of the practice ROM.
Shine Spark timer.
The Shine Spark timer. So basically, if you come into the info HUD, portion, or the config and then the info HUD portion of the practice ROM, you'll see the Shine Spark timer. So I've got it selected, and so what it'll do is it'll give you 180, that's 180 frames. That's exactly 3 seconds. So basically, once you store a Shine Spark, like once you press down, you have 180 frames, 3 seconds to use it. And I feel like that is probably one of the most misunderstood things by new players and the cause of a lot of mistakes with shine sparking, because I feel like a lot of newer players get in way too much of a rush to use their shine spark. In the grand scheme, and Moss, I think you will agree, I didn't run this by you, but I think you will agree with me on this. 3 seconds in the world of speedrunning, in particular in the world of Super Metroid speedrunning, is a way bigger amount of time than you can really imagine. You have a wide window to use 3 seconds. If you were told that, hey, Moss, you just have to press 1 button or 2 buttons within a 3 second window, you'd probably be like, oh, that sounds pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
So, what
don't rush yourself.
Yeah, don't rush yourself. That's the key. Relaxing and knowing that you have a good amount of time. I see players, they'll get it and they'll just immediately try to do something, and then they'll, tap up twice and then go to the ceiling or something.
Yeah.
What you need to be aware of is once you hit it, notice that it's running down from 180 to 0, okay? And once you get that shine spark held, or once you get the shine spark stored, you can run around, you can jump, you can basically do your normal stuff. You just have to be careful about pressing R up. So watch this real quick. I'm going to store it. I'm going to jump. And then I jumped really high up in the air, even ran around for a second, and had plenty of time to activate it to actually get the shine spark that I wanted to get. So just be aware that you have a lot of time. And as Moss pointed out, when you get into the air and you're spinning and you press, like I'm pressing up, that's how I do it. Notice that you get this little wind-up animation, okay? That wind-up animation is basically half a second or so. And that also means that you get more time than you would think to decide the direction once you activate the spark. So another major mistake is people will get up in the air and then immediately try to do something and mess up and then spark into the ceiling. Just realize that you can press up, wait a second, and then actually press forward and B or whatever to get the direction you want to go. Or you can wait a second and then press R and go, diagonal. So I know that seems basic, but if I had a general rule of thumb for newer players to get better at really any of these things where it seems like you don't have much time, it would be relax. Just relax. I distinctly remember the day that I realized that I had more time after activation than I thought. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was sitting here trying to get this thing super fast every time, when in reality, I have a pretty wide window to get it. So, if you're trying to spark across the ocean or something, up, boom, just give yourself time. So, yes. To that end, let's go over here real quick. The primary place that you're going to be using shine sparks, mandatory shine sparks, if you will, in the any percent old route is to get across the moat and to get across the ocean, okay? So Moss will talk a little bit more about this in a second, but I'm going to turn on the info HUD just for a second. I'm going to put Magic Pants on, and what that shows is every time that Samus flashes, that is the frame in which you have to tap your dash.
Oh, are we getting into tapping already?
Well, it's required for what I'm about to show. I'm going to let you do the more in-depth thing.
Okay.
You don't even really have to understand how this works. Like, you don't have to know the ins and outs of this to get it in your run. I'm just going to show the two major places and show how easy it can be. So this is where it's checking to see if you have dash pressed, and then once you get to like 4, it gives you your blue state, which you can then you can then charge your spark. So I'm not going to make it more complex than it needs to be. Just understand that in this particular room, if you're trying to get across the moat, the easiest way to do so would be to line yourself up with this door, and then press right before you press dash. You can actually do a one tap in this room, and after she takes her first step, which happens like roughly right around here, if you press dash and hold it one time, you can give yourself plenty of room to get the shine spark that you need for this particular room, okay? So you don't have to do some stutter 3-tap, nonsense in this room. Just press right, hold dash one time, and you got a pretty wide window, okay? And so then remember that at this point, you want to spin jump and then activate your spark and press forward and jump to get it across the moat, okay? If you're a little low, you'll run into that missile, which especially for beginners is not a huge problem. But what you might want to do is try to shoot for the ceiling right here, okay? If you jump against the ceiling, you can other than that particular spot, if you jump against the ceiling, you can actually ride it for a second.
It sort of pulls you down.
And it pulls you down, and then you can kind of activate from there to get across the moat. Kind of like that, okay? So there's a one tap. A one tap is incredibly easy. You only have to press dash and hold it one time. You just kind of have to know where to do it. And then over here, Moss will explain the mechanics a little bit better. But here you want to try to utilize a 2-tap. So you got to tap the dash button one time on her first animation, where her foreground foot comes forward, and then you want to tap it a second time. So if you get to this part and you're trying to get over the ocean, a 1-2 tap, where you tap right around here and somewhere down here, okay? 1, 2. That'll give you enough space to get your shine spark that you can then use to get across the ocean. So long story short, you can actually learn how to do these things even if you don't know every tiny in and out. But I'll let Moss go a little bit more in depth on this, and then I'll show you something you can do in the Dragon room to kind of learn how to do that fight a little bit faster. So Moss, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Okay, so short charging, I guess, huh?
That's it.
All right. So the first thing that Kipp was using was called quick charging. It's slightly different from short charging. Quick charging is just only one press of the run button. So in the first room that he was showing off, just you push right and then you push run. That's what's called quick charging. It's not exactly, it's pretty much the same thing as short charging. So essentially, another way to call it, it's like a one tap. It's what we call it. So again, this is a good room for short charging is a hard one. It takes a lot of practice. After a while, it becomes very, very consistent. So the best way to explain short charging, I think, is that there are two values in the game that go up when you hold the dash button. The first one is your momentum, which is essentially like your speed, how fast you're moving. So every frame that you're holding dash, your speed increases until it caps at its top speed. There is another value that is also going up when you're pressing the dash button. And we're going to call it our blue suit counter in this case. And this is just the game's way of determining when you can go into blue suit. So the counter for blue suit goes up to 4. If you get number 4 on the counter, you turn into blue. So it's pretty simple to explain. The problem is that the blue suit counter is only measured on a specific frame of Samus's run animation. It's the animation where her front foot hits the ground. If you go to that wiki page of the short charge, there's a photo of it there. And so in order to do a proper short charge, you have to tap the run button only as Samus's foot hits that position. If you do that, it means that you're not holding run the whole time. So it means you're not building up as much speed or as much momentum. So if you don't gain as much momentum, you don't travel as far. In order to get a 4 count on your speed charger, you have to go through Samus's run animation 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So after 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's where your counter hits 4 and you will be in blue suit. But if you're holding run the whole time, 1, 2, 3, 4, you see how far I got if I'm holding run before the 4th time her foot hit the ground? So if you are not holding run the whole time, you won't travel as far, but the game thinks that you've been essentially holding it the whole time, because it's every time the magic frame, as it's called, frame where her foot hits the ground, you're holding the run button. So it's kind of tricky. There's a couple of things that I think are important to understand. Firstly, understanding where we'll put on the magic pants. I don't really like magic pants. But where I don't even know where is magic pants in the
It's in the same place as the Shine Spark counter, I think.
Oh, it's in Misk. Okay. In Misk, right?
Correct.
Oh, I must have a
Oh no, you go down to the bottom to Info HUD or whatever.
Oh, it's an Info HUD.
And should be in there.
Info HUD.
At least that's what I've got on mine. Maybe we have different.
Oh, okay. I guess I don't. I might have had an earlier version. I don't have move. I don't have.
Do you not have magic pants at all?
I don't have magic pants in here, so I can't show it. Anyways, I don't actually really. I never used magic pants, and I don't know. Like it's handy to some degree, yes, but at the same time, you have to kind of just get used to what Samus's run animation is. And so magic pants in some ways can be a crutch, and then when it's not there, it's like it's hard to kind of see it. But I never learned using it. So if you find it's good to use, then go ahead.
One thing I will say about it is, it can be a crutch, but it's also effective for people to see literally whether or not they know where the frame is.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's one of those things where I wouldn't recommend practicing with it every single time in every single room, but I would suggest looking at it at first, just so you have a clear indication of exactly where it's happening, as opposed to, me saying, watch when her front forward, her front foot, is in its forward position. Well, that can be a little bit of a wide range. So using magic pants can at least show you at first where these things are happening.
Yeah, I didn't learn with it, but if you find it's handy, go ahead. I just posted in the chat. I did a short charge tutorial that's much more in depth than this. We're gonna keep it pretty short to kind of get through this right now. The big thing is that it's good to understand that when you're moving, once your counter gets above 2, so your blue suit counter, once you've done 2 taps, Samus's run animation starts moving faster. So you can kind of see that her run animation is kind of slow. When I do the first tap, I don't think it changes. Still the same speed. But when I do 2 taps, 1, 2, you notice that her hands and legs are moving faster. And on 3 taps, 1, 2, 3, it's even faster. On 4 taps where you have blue suit, it doesn't really matter at that point, but your hands move even faster at blue suit. I think that's actually the reason why the magic frame exists, is that they needed a place to like a location in the game's memory when the run animation actually speeds up. I think that's probably why the charger kind of the magic frame kind of exists in the game. I could be wrong though. So to that end, tap 3 and tap 4 happen much, much, much faster than tap 1 and 2, because the run animation speeds up, so your foot lands on the ground sooner. Probably you're not going to need a 4 tap. Pretty much everything in the game can be done with a 3 tap or a stutter 3 tap. We'll talk a little bit about stuttering, but Really, like to get really deep into short charging, I would probably suggest like looking at the other video that I've posted. So let's just kind of show the difference between the different how far you go with short charge. If I just hold run, I can get a shine spark around here. So after the second light, almost at the third light, if I don't press until the first step, I can get one somewhere around here, actually. So it's a huge difference. The quick charge is a huge distance that you shorter if you can do the one tap. Two tap brings it even shorter. 1, 2, or tap, hold. Maybe not that close. Tap, hold. So we were here. Now we're here. So we've kind of gone from like here to here to here. 3 tap, 1, 2, 3. Now we're here, somewhere around there. And so with each additional tap, you decrease the amount of distance you need in order to do a shine spark. The fourth one, for most situations, you're probably just going to waste your time if you try to go for a 4 tap. You might as well just hold down the button on the 3rd tap. Stuttering is kind of a tricky one to understand. If you push forward and you kind of tap and release it, you notice that you continue Samus's run animation, but you're not really moving very far. That's what's called stuttering. The big thing with this is that it means that you can get to your first magic frame like right around here, as opposed to right around here. If I don't stutter, magic frame is sort of here. If I do stutter, magic frame is like here. So it's a bit of a difference, and in some situations it's pretty important. So the most basic way to explain stuttering, to do a stutter 1 tap, is to, most people say lollipop. I think that's kind of the entry level explanation. So lollipop, you kind of have to shuffle the rhythm. It's not straight. It's not lollipop, lollipop. It's lollipop. So it's just the timing is a little bit swung to the side. If you think of the song Lollipop, that's kind of the way they sing it. So you have to push forward on law, release forward, and then you hold forward on Lee and press run on pop. So lollipop, something like that. I don't actually use that as a reference for myself, but I use a different song. So it's a little tricky to get used to stuttering. The big thing that's important with the stutter is that if you don't hold the first input, so in this case, right, if you don't hold it long enough, you don't get a full stutter. You notice that like Samus kicks her leg up. If I just tap it, she kicks her leg up, but she doesn't continue the step. If I hold it a little bit longer, it actually kind of you gain enough momentum that her run animation actually continues for a little bit longer. So if you tap it too quickly, you can see what it kind of happens. You see how like I'm not keeping the run animation, but if I hold it a little bit longer, I can kind of keep the speed of it a little bit better. So you have to make sure if you're working on taps on stutters, if you notice that you kind of stop, do like a little a kick and then stop and then have to kind of start again, you're probably holding the first stutter. You're not holding it long enough. So you have to hold it long enough that you can get a little bit of speed. Lollipop. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I don't know if there's much more I can explain in this tutorial here, Kipp. Do you have anything else to add about it?
I want to add just I got the wrong thing. I want to add like a practical application because I think everybody who runs the game understands that this is one of those kind of skill sets that's very complex and very difficult and takes a long time and a lot of muscle memory to do. And I'll just openly admit, like, I miss short charges all the time. And, you know, don't get me wrong, it's not great. I don't feel great about it when I miss, but at the same time, if you watch anybody run, everybody misses them sometimes, depending on how tight it is. But I want to show the Dragon room real quick, and I want to show a method that I came up with. And real quick, when I say I came up with, I'm not saying that I'm the only person who's ever done this. I'm confident that somebody did this before me. It was probably in a tutorial somewhere. But I just happened to kind of find this on my own when I started running the game. And it was very helpful for me to learn how to do a short charge for the Dragon fight in a very easy, beginner-friendly way. And I'm confident that it will work for anybody because I've actually taught this method to several people who are newer that like hang out in my stream. And it's been very helpful for them too. I think even Gambrinus was here earlier and mentioned that it helped him. So learning the short charge method to kill Dragon will significantly increase your speed in this fight. It's a lot better even if you're a newer player than just trying to use missiles and charge shots and stuff like that. So, and obviously you don't have grapple. So anyway, let me explain the way I look at it, and it's very easy for a newer player, okay? Notice that in this room, my dash is Y, so if you see me holding it up there, just know that that's what it is. In the Dragon room, if you just hold dash straight up and run across the room, you will notice that you don't get a Shine Spark, right? You don't have enough room. So Moss was discussing the idea that, the benefits of short charging is that you can get a blue suit in a shorter amount of horizontal space, right? So if I just hold it, I'm not going to get it, right? So this is a good room to kind of learn how it works in a practical sense. You can get a short charge in this room really consistently, only doing a 2-tap and not even having to stutter. Now, I will openly acknowledge that the better players have methods that are a little bit, they're more difficult, but they are better and give you more space and blah, blah, blah. But I think this is really easy for newer players. So what I want you to pay attention to are the visual cues. If you're running from left to right and you tap dash for the first time as you pass this pipe, and then press and hold it the second time after this pipe, you will have enough space to get a short charge and get a Shine Spark stored like right around over here, okay? So the key though is you got to make sure that you're facing away, like with this method, even though it's very, beginner friendly, face away and push yourself up against this wall, and then press left, tap, tap, boom, okay? Tap, hold, boom. All right, let me tap, hold, boom. And you'll notice that I've got Magic Pants on. Let me actually turn Magic Pants off just so you can get the feel of it in kind of like real time, okay? Tap, boom, boom. Tap, boom, boom. Should be plenty of space to get your short charge, and you can get into position to get ready to Shine Spark, okay? The secondary way from this side, the cues are these bones right here, okay? Like the set of bones. And then right before this crab, all right? So the secondary way to go from left to right, tap, hold, boom, whoops, tap, hold, boom, tap, hold, boom, tap, hold, boom. Long story short, you can literally, like once you kill Dragon or whatever, like in the practice ROM, you can practice going back and forth. And if you do it correctly, you will literally never lose the ability to Shine Spark. And this is a good way to practice, at least getting a 2-tap, and in particular to apply it in a way that's really going to help your boss fights if you're a newer player. I guess one other kind of thing to think about is, with the fight, especially on the first go around, you want to train yourself to be able to also charge an X Factor to do more damage against Dragon. But I would advise, this is just me personally, and this is a good time to again remind people. Part of the reason Moss and I wanted to do this is because we're actually both in education. Like I teach full-time high school. I teach some university courses and stuff like that. So, trying to teach people how to do stuff isn't just memorize this one thing, right? There's different ways to learn. And a lot of times trying to do the hardest thing first is not always beneficial. Now, some people it is. For some people, they want to immediately get to the hardest thing, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to kind of build a skill set and add as you go, this method will be very effective for getting you that spark in the Dragon room, before you learn how to stutter 3-tap and stuff like that. So just be aware that you can get a 2-tap. But the last thing I want to make sure you understand is that one of the reasons that people will miss this or miss other Shine Sparks or short charges is because their taps are too long. Actually, mentioning Galamoz was here earlier. We interviewed him. He was the first person that kind of made this sink in for me when I was learning the game. If you're going to even do a 2-tap, you need to focus on making sure your first tap is very crisp, because the longer you hold that dash button, the more speed you're picking up and the more space you're taking up horizontally. So you want to tap it and then hold it the second time. If you just barely tap it the first time, you won't really move that far horizontally, and it'll give you a little extra leeway to get it. Okay? So when you're practicing this, spend some time in here. Really mentally focus on getting that first one as a tap, because if you hold it down for too long, you can still get it, but you get way less space over here, way less leeway to get it. And for moves like, learning how to short charge for fast pillars and lower Norfair, that's another one of those times where if you're not crisp on the taps, it can really get in your way. So, again, this is a really great place to learn how to do an easy 2-tap that can actually be practical in terms of your old route run. I would actually recommend new players to learn this almost immediately, because the difference between a fight like this with Dragon versus a fight where you're just trying to shoot her or use missiles or whatever, there's a huge difference in terms of speed. All right, Moss, what else would you like to add back to that?
I think that's it. I mean, like I said, there's, a lot of, I have a big tutorial on doing proper stutter 3-tap and all that sort of stuff. That it's the problem with getting into short charging is once you start talking about it, it's well, there goes half an hour, because it takes so long to explain it. Takes a lot of practice. You have to kind of, use visual cues if you want. It's as much as I like visual cues, I think that it is very good to understand the run animation, because sometimes, if you're in the wrong position when you start and your visual cues aren't exactly the same, it sometimes makes it a little bit harder. It's as a beginning point, using visual cues is great. As you start, working further, you should really try to pay attention to the run animation on Samus. All right, we should do some hitbox stuff. We haven't really talked about hitbox. I was kind of hoping that we would get to shine sparking at the end, or short charging at the end, but let's jump into some hitbox stuff. We haven't even talked about ledge grabbing yet.
Not too much, but one thing we have done, and this will probably need to be kind of the last thing for now, and I'm sure there are other things we could talk about and we can get to in future ones, but we have spent a decent amount of time on some of this stuff at the beginning of our episode 1 Strat Chat, where we discussed the opening sequences of Old Route. So, talking about gap skipping and pressing down to compress your hitbox and pressing L or R up or shoot to break out a spin for ledge grabbing are things that we discussed, pretty much a decent amount at length in our first episode. But we're going to go ahead. We'll need to end with kind of this portion, and then anything that we didn't quite get to, because there's all kinds of stuff we could talk about, we'll try to continue for next time. But Moss, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and discuss the sort of hitbox manipulation that you want to discuss here.
Great. Okay. So the big thing with understanding Samus's hitbox is a really, really important part of the game, and learning to move fast is very, very dependent on your understanding of how Samus's hitbox looks. I'm just going to post this in the wiki, or from the wiki. So essentially, Samus's hitbox is largest when you're standing, smaller when you're crouching, even smaller when you're in morph ball. When you're spin jumping, it's small. When you're in the air aiming down, it's actually smaller than the spin jump. And that's actually very important. It's something that's really, really good to understand, is that your spin jump is small, but aiming down is actually smaller. That will help a lot. It's sort of almost like you bring your knees up when you aim down. So all of these things you can manipulate in order to move faster through the game. So if you're spin jumping, you have a small hitbox, but if you break out a spin using an angle button or a shot or up, you actually expand your hitbox. So ledge grabbing essentially just means before you hit the ground, if you push the angle button, L or R, whichever preference, you expand your hitbox enough that your feet land on the ground sooner. And this is really handy because it just puts you in better control. Aside from the fact that you land earlier and therefore you can jump again earlier, it puts you in better control of your character. Because as soon as you land, you're in a very stable, like standing position. And so as opposed to being sort of when you jump above a platform, you're sort of in this sort of like I said, spin jumping, it's kind of hard to control. So you want to get out of spin jump as soon as possible. So ledge grab is the way that we do that. So basically jump over a ledge, and when you get on top of it, as soon as you're on top of it, you push an angle button, and that ledge grabs. Ledge grabbing, I cannot emphasize enough how important ledge grabbing is. I see a lot of people when they're first learning the game, this is how they go up all of their rooms. Maybe they'll do something like this. All of their jumps sort of have that arcing motion over the platforms. And, on the first time you play through the game, that's fine. But the next time you play through it, I think it's the best thing you can do when you're first learning the game, to learn how to ledge grab. Now, ledge grabbing or landing early is another word for it. You can do it not just on when you're jumping up to a higher platform. If you're jumping across a gap, so if I'm jumping here to here, I always end my jump with an angle button because it means I land sooner. And that means I'm in control sooner. It means I'm running again sooner. So it's very important. Getting into the habit of anytime you jump, when you're about to land, holding the angle button, you should just get into that habit pretty much all the time. There are a few situations where I won't angle, but they're very, very few. Like I won't usually ledge grab in the pit room because it's very possible that you'll miss your jump if you do that. So I don't ledge grab there. But in most situations, I would say 99% of the time, I'm ledge grabbing when I land on a platform. So to that end, I think that when you're working on platforming and doing ledge grabbing at first, it's good to try practicing in a almost sort of stop motion way. Instead of practicing doing this and then you run and then you jump and you ledge grab, trying to practice just doing little platform movements and a little ledge grabs. Bam, bam, bam. It's a little slower at first, but you're working on precision at first. And in the end, even though this seems kind of slow, you're probably actually moving up the room faster than you would if you were just trying to go as fast as possible like this. And trying to get up using, just I can't even do it because it's so weird to jump like this for me.
Hey, what's that thing we talked about? I think in particular with Zos, it's practice doesn't make perfect. It's perfect practice or good practice that gets you further faster.
How you practice is really important. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I would say that doing little, like practicing jumping up platforms like this and ending, just stopping when you end, just like, when you land, just stop. And as you get better, if you're learning, let's say you're going up this part, land, land, land. And then as you get better, you just start tying it together. But you don't want to tie it together so fast that you're losing the idea of the motion. So I think it's good to kind of, when you're practicing platforming, and even in your early runs, like make your jumps count. Don't just sort of jump willy-nilly all over the place on your way up. Sort of like this, stop, think about your next jump and move to the next one, just almost in a stop motion kind of way. And you'll just find you're in a lot better control. Yeah, thanks, Nint. Yeah, say bam every time you do a ledge. Bam. Just say that from now on, guys. Everyone should say bam from now on. That's kind of, I would suggest that when you're first learning, it's a good way to kind of just get into the practice of it. You don't have to be that slow. Bam, 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 bam. Okay, so you don't have to do that like super slow, but I would suggest practicing like actually land and then think about your next movement at the beginning, because the jumps will chain together quickly, but you're learning the discipline essentially at this point. Anything else to say about that, Kipp?
Not in particular. I think you're pretty much on the money. I definitely think that, I guess, one of the things I like talking about, and this is also kind of my educational background, is just like, it's one thing to show people, how to do something. And if you really think about it, we're not really showing anything that other people haven't shown before, but it's just good to be able to talk about it in a live setting. But also, like from a philosophical point of view, and I can say this from my own experience, I'm sure everybody's not the same way, but I'm sure a lot of people are. You know, a lot of times when you're first learning to run, you start getting a little comfortable, and then you realize like, well, I need to start doing this other thing that's, you know, more difficult or harder. And at first it's uncomfortable and you don't necessarily want to try to do it. Like, for example, you know, ledge grabbing can be that way for some players, or down grabbing can be that way for certain players, or gap skipping can be that way for certain players. And the simple reality is, you know, yeah, you're probably going to mess it up a good bit when you first start, but you really just have to make yourself go for it, because the easiest way to get comfortable with it is just to do it. And, and while it may seem scary at first and kind of foreign, especially when you do, you know, a few runs, I promise you that if you continue to do it, just like anything else, learning, you know, chords on a guitar or whatever, you will get the feeling for it, and your body will start to naturally kind of incorporate it. I think Sloter's actually said something during his stream earlier today. I was watching him run some hundo, and he said something that like really resonated that I think is important for people to remember. You will play your game. You will play this game at your best, regardless of wherever you are with your skill set, when everything starts to feel natural to you.
Yes.
And you're not necessarily like using your brain to get through rooms. It's more like it almost becomes more like a body experience than a brain experience when you know, really start getting comfortable. A lot like playing an instrument. You know, when I play gigs and play guitar, like I'm not some elite world-class guitar player, but honestly, I'm usually at my best when I'm not even thinking about it. So just keep that in mind. You know, from a philosophical point of view, you can definitely improve. You definitely can become more comfortable, but you're going to kind of have to force yourself into a situation where you're not feeling super comfortable at first.
Yeah. So here's my analogy for ledge grabbing, since you're getting philosophical. Ledge grabbing is like a shoehorn. So when I was a kid, like I remember my dad had a shoe, and I was like, "What's that for?" And he said, "Well, it's for putting on your shoes. You know, you just like you put it in your shoe and you put your foot in." And I thought that sounds stupid. I just you know, as a kid, you just shove your foot into your shoe, right? And then I get older and I got nice shoes. And then, you know, I try to put my foot into the shoe and I'm like, oh, this sucks. I wish there was just some like tool that did this for me. And then I realized, oh, right, that's that thing that my dad was talking about. Yeah, a shoehorn is excellent. And then you try a shoehorn and it's great.
Man, old people always have all the knowledge, and you just don't know it until you get older.
So to that end, if you're first learning the game, shoehorns are ledge grabs are very important. Trust us, get into doing ledge grabs immediately. More than anything else, I would say that's like the best thing that you can start learning right away. Okay, we got a couple other things we'll finished up. We should probably talk a little bit more about just some more hitbox stuff. Just the big thing about, I guess, like aiming down and down grabs a little bit would be a good thing to talk about. So I mentioned that spin jumps are small, but aiming down is smaller. Aiming down in the air is incredibly handy. There are some. Why can't I get up here? There are some situations where you can actually get on top of a ledge if you aim down first. So aiming down contracts your hitbox. So if I jump in this situation, I just jump straight up, I'm holding left. You notice I can't get up there. But if at the top I press aim down and then push left, I can get up there now. Because what it does is it brings your knees up essentially, and then you can just get onto the ledge. You have to be right up against the platform. But and this is called down grabbing. It's a really important thing to start learning. Once you kind of get basic movement down, this is the next thing that's I think is really, really useful. The thing with down grabs is that they can, if you're jumping straight up, if you're not doing a spin jump, you're doing a straight jump, you can't use a ledge grab. That doesn't really work. But a down grab will work. And in some situations, you actually need a down grab to get up into a certain position. Down grabs are really handy for later things like the full halfie. But it's really important thing to learn. It's the same motion actually as the Hadouken from the mock ball. So it's just, push down and roll over to the forward motion, down, move over. But it's incredibly handy. And one of the things that it's really useful for is if you actually miss a platform. Let me see if I can get to a place where that will work well. I'll just go up here, I guess. So if you're trying to jump up onto a platform and you miss it. So I'm trying to jump up here, but I jump too low, or I ledge grab a little too early, and I end up right here. You're in this spot right here, butted against the wall. It's really slow to try to do this, to jump up and then try to run or turn around and spin jump up. It's very slow. So learning to do a down grab in this situation is really a good thing to start working on, because it gets you onto the platform quickly and it gives you the full run speed of the platform as well. So it's good to get into the idea if you miss a jump to down. It's a really good thing to learn for the pit room. We talked about that in our tutorial. Down grabs take a lot of time to get used to, I think, but you should try to just integrate them into your runs. Anytime you make a mistake and you're up against the wall, just try doing a down grab to get up. You may miss it a few times, but it's a good thing to start working on. Now, let's just quickly talk about combining a down grab and a crouch jump. So I said here that you can get up onto this platform if you down grab. You can also get onto this platform if you crouch jump. So when you crouch, if you jump from a crouch position, you actually jump a little bit. Your jump starts a little bit higher. So it means that in certain situations where you can't get like up onto a platform naturally, you can crouch and jump up onto it. So this is, I can't get up here like I said before, but if you duck, you can get up here. Now, in some situations, you can chain those two things together. I can only see if I can remember where's the platform. It's this one. So getting up here, this is one where you can't jump up the platform. It's just too high. But if you try to down grab it, it doesn't work as well. If you try to crouch jump, it doesn't work. But if you combine the two, so you crouch jump to get yourself a little bit higher and down grab, you can get up onto this platform. This is something that you use a lot in Meridia if you're going with suitless in Meridia. This is something that you use a lot, crouching and down grabbing. It's just a good thing to sort of understand about Samus's hitbox, that like it doesn't seem like you should be able to get up there, but with clever usage of Samus's compressing her hitbox, you can do very interesting things in the game. Anything to add to that, Kipp?
No, I think what you just showed is perfect. Basically, I was just explaining to Pine here in the chat, the best way to kind of get a feel for that, what you just did is a perfect spot, because you want to find a place where you literally can't reach it without that down grab, and that will be the easiest way for you to get the feel for if you have it correct or not, because if you don't have it correct, you won't get there, and if you do have it correct, you will.
And the climb is actually a good spot to do it, because I've been in a situation many times. I try to get up here, and I'm on my way up. I've been wall jumping, and I get up here, and I just miss it somehow, and I end up down here. And this is a sucky place to be, because there's pirates kind of on both locations. So practicing here is a good thing, because it's a little bit. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's better to do than trying to spin jump your way up. You can actually do this one with spin jump as well. Again, like I said, spin jump does contract your hitbox a little bit more than a regular jump. So you can do this one with a spin jump as well. But it's good to understand that that's a good place to do down grabs. We should do gap skips really quickly. So gap skips is sort of taking the same fundamental as a down grab in a sense. Like I said, you're bringing your knees up. So if you just run off this platform, you're going to hit this. But in the air, if you aim down, again, you're bringing your knees up so that you can just actually run right over this gap. So it's called gap skipping. It's a good thing to learn. I practice gap skipping in the pit room a lot. That's where I usually suggest practicing it, because there's just all these pits that you can practice gap skipping over. you can do it at any, like a slow speed, like just turning around, and you can get onto this platform. The thing to remember is you have to make sure you're on the platform before you start pressing down, and you hold down until you land. And that's pretty much it with gap skips. They are very useful. There are situations, it's faster usually to gap skip across rather than doing a jump. It was something that Galamoz said earlier, and it's a really important thing to come back to. You want to be on the ground as much as possible and jumping as little as possible. So avoiding this, by doing this, it's always going to be faster because you're on the ground longer. So that's the thing with gap skips. What else we got? Downbacks. I think that's downbacks, and that's pretty much everything. We haven't done K-going. We should probably talk a little bit about K-going. So let's do quickly some downback stuff. Downback is kind of a hard one to explain. When you fall off a platform, if you're in the aim down position, you have to fall off a platform. It won't work when you jump. But if you fall off and aim down, if you, while holding down, you then press the back button. So in this case, I'm facing right. So if I hold down and then roll over to sort of a down left position, you actually start traveling to the right. It's very, very counterintuitive because you're holding down left and you're moving right. So it takes a long time to get used to that feeling. But it's handy in situations where you can't get through normally. In this spot right here, if I try to just spin jump down, I will always hit this platform, or run down, I'll always hit this platform. But you can do a down back through this and you don't hit that platform. It's a good thing to start practicing a little bit in, certain rooms. This is actually, I would suggest, if you're going to start working on down backs, just try doing it here, because you're going to do this room so many thousands and thousands of times. Every time your game resets, you're coming through this room. So if you want to learn down backs, just start doing it here. And then, you don't have to do it anywhere else in the run, but you're getting, many, many times practicing it just by doing it over and over again right here. So the only other thing to say is it's down, then back. You have to make sure you're in this aim down position before you start pushing down, or pushing back rather. So you have to wait till you see Samus aiming down and then roll over to the back button. Morph Ball Chamber is a good place for practicing down backs. Yeah, you can also do it there. That's a good place to practice it as well, for sure. Okay. Edge boosting is not important. Let's not deal with that. Door checking is kind of a good thing to look at really quick. So when you are trying to wall jump, every time you turn around in spin jump, the game checks to see if there's a wall that next to you that you can wall jump off of. So if you're close enough to a wall, so you see I'm not getting close enough. But if I get close enough, you see that one animation that says you can do a ledge grab now. So the game sort of treats you as touching that wall when the ledge grab, or when the wall check happens. So you can use that going through doors. If you go through a door in a spin jump and turn around, when the game checks to see if you're wall jumping, it actually treats you as touching the door. So you actually go through the door. So you notice I jumped and turned around there, and I actually went through the door doing that. It's it's hard to do if you don't have a lot of speed, but when you're running fast, it's not too difficult. And this is only good for rooms where you don't have to continue your forward momentum. So if you have to keep running through a room, you never want to do it. But in a room where if you don't need to continue your momentum, you can do a door check. It's also good if in a room where you're going to be wall jumping, if you want to wall jump up this wall here, you can use the door check here. And that way you're already jumping up this wall, so you can wall jump off of it. It's a little tricky to get used to, but it's good to understand that is a mechanic that's in the game. You can do it with items as well. One that comes to mind is the first missile. You can run towards it, just spin jump, and then turn away just before you get there, and you can actually grab it early. All right. I think we got through all the hitbox stuff. Anything to add to that, Kipp?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. It's just good to know. I would recommend going to the wiki and looking at the images there to understand, how big her hitbox is and all the different positions, and that will really be a helpful thing, to get used to how you want to dodge certain attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's really quickly, because we can do this, I think, super fast. Do you want to head up to the gauntlet and we'll just talk about quick dropping really fast, and I'll go somewhere else to do it?
Yeah, sure.
So just before we do that, so while Kipp's heading up to the gauntlet to show you quick dropping, I'm going to quickly show you about arm pumping. Arm pumping is really simple. Every time you arm pump, you move one frame ahead. It's not very important. It's really, really not important. You can do it if it's not going to slow you down in any way, trip you up. You can do it. Don't do it on slopes coming down. Only on flat surfaces and slopes going up. If you do it on slopes coming down, the game actually it sort of pushes you off of the platform because it moves you 1 pixel forward, and that sort of puts you off the slope. So you actually lose all your momentum sometimes. And if that happens, you've probably lost all the time that you've gained from doing arm pumping. Sorry, not one pixel, not 1 frame. Pardon me. Thanks, Ferd. So I don't really recommend worrying too much about arm pumping. I always say it's a shame that in the AGDQ races, arm pumping is the first thing that they always talk about because it's such a minor thing. And it's like, so as soon as people start running the game, they're like, oh, okay, arm pump. Okay, let's arm pump time. But if you make one mistake in the game because of arm pumping, then you've basically wasted you've spoilt all the time that you've gained doing it. There's a couple of rooms where it's worth doing. You can save up to a second in the speed booster room if you arm pump. There are a few rooms which have slopes, such as the speed booster room, that you can arm pump down. They're very specific. That room and the lower mushrooms room, just before you go to the elevator to go to Brinstar. That's also a room where you can arm pump. Stop on a dime. If you're running, you have a lot of run speed. It takes a long time to slow down. Let's put on speed booster. The Kago room, yeah. I think that's called lower mushrooms, isn't it? Anyways, if you're running fast, it takes a little while when you release run to slow down. But if you press an angle button, you stop immediately. That's called stopping on a dime. It's very handy for elevators because if you want to grab an elevator, you stop on a dime and then push down or up to go up the elevator. And it's a good thing to understand about the game. The nice thing about understanding that is that you don't really you stop entirely when you're holding an angle button. So holding an angle button is really good for nudging along a platform. Like if you're trying to get into a very specific position or you're trying to get, to the edge of a platform, if you hold the angle button, you can kind of edge a lot better than if you're not holding the angle because you sort of keep your momentum if you're not holding an angle. So it's a lot easier to edge and get in a perfect position if you're holding an angle button. All right. Wall jump check we did. Okay, all those things. Do you want to do quick drop? Yep.
Yeah, we can start off showing a little bit about it. I'll just go ahead. Where I am right now is I'm in Gauntlet, and I'm at the part, in Hundo where basically, you fall down here through these crumble blocks, and you try to get these 2 missiles or whatever. But what we're going to just kind of show briefly is just the fact that you can, and sorry again for the no signal issue, but you can sometimes move faster through these things, and I'm not super great at it. It depends on the room. There's kind of an interesting rhythm to it. The best place to probably be aware of it and the easiest place to kind of get it or use it at first is in the early supers room because you can actually queue up, and that's something we already discussed in episode 1. But long story short, when you're on these crumble blocks, if you just sit still, you're gonna fall. You're basically gonna land and then fall. It's kind of slow. So if you turn from left to right at the right rhythm, you can actually kind of quick fall through these things. I don't know 100% why the game works exactly this way, but I know you can actually do this on certain ledges too. I think Moss in episode 1, it might have been episode 2, discussed that you can do it accidentally sometimes off of the elevator when you get to Green Brinstar for the first time. But essentially, you're just going to press left to right when on the right frames, and I find that it's a little bit easier when you're facing down. to get this, but you can actually move through these things a little bit faster. So depending on what category you run or what where you are, in particular, I use it in old route and RBO when you're exiting Lower Norfair. I know I use it in 100%, in certain spots like where you've got the reserve tank and wreck ship and you're trying to fall down through the crumble blocks a little bit faster. So there's just a certain rhythm to it that you just kind of have to get accustomed to. It's really easy to miss, but if you get it perfectly, you can actually kind of do it the whole time. I think even today I saw Oats and Goats do it in his 100% run. He had it the whole time. So it's a certain thing. It's got a certain rhythm to it, but that's generally speaking how it works. I'll toss it over to you to show your spot, Moss.
Yeah. So I just first went to some water because I wanted to show that when I've turned off gravity suit, so I'm moving really slowly. When you're about to land on the ground, if you watch, if I turn around before I land on the ground, you notice that I sort of float for a second there. Before, I have to finish the turnaround animation in the air before I can land. And that's kind of what is happening with this quick dropping thing. You've touched the ground, so the quick drop or the crumble block is disappearing, but you haven't actually landed yet. So because you haven't landed yet, you actually are continuing to hold your downward momentum. And that's why quick drops work. Now, the one thing you'll notice is that the length of time you have to do a turnaround animation, if I aim down, it's actually a much longer time to do a turnaround animation. So this is, if I don't aim down, this is what a turnaround looks like in water. But if I do it with a turnaround, with an aim down, look how long that is. Now, another thing that's interesting about aiming down is that if you aim down, you can also just continually do turnarounds in the air. So you can kind of, actually it's a little harder in the water because it's slower, but you can see I'm actually going back and forth. And I'm just floating there, right? And so this is really handy for certain quick drops because sometimes if you mistime the crumble, this gives you you can do a couple of back and forths. So that's anytime most runners are doing a quick drop, they're going to be aiming down. It just opens the window a little bit more to do the turnaround. Whereas this is a little bit shorter, it's a little bit tighter. And so you might as well aim down to make it a little easier to do quick drops there. Let me quickly go to Red Tower. One thing that you can do is blocks that you bomb, you can also kind of quick drop through as well. So I'm just going to head over there now. So this is a little thing, but it's using the same mechanic. So remember how I said that when you're doing that turnaround, you're essentially floating, keeping your downward momentum until you land on the ground. So in this place here, if I drop a bomb, you can jump up and drop down through and you keep your speed. But if you time it properly, you notice that I did a couple of turnarounds there. I just sort of floated above it until the bomb exploded. And it sort of creates a frame perfect drop, essentially. You don't really have to do that many turnarounds. You can jump a little higher and just do one turnaround usually, but that's another location where a quick drop works really well. They're pretty cool, and there's a couple of them that are pretty easy to learn. There's one that you can buffer coming off of getting super missiles, and the place where Kipp was showing it is a really good example of how much quick drops can be handy. So we got to do K-going, and I think that's pretty much everything. We didn't do pseudo screws, but let's do K-goes.
Yeah, we're way over time.
Yeah, let's end with K-goes and
then. Real quick, just to show, I mentioned at the top of Gauntlet, and I think Beefer just mentioned it too. The most applicable place to do a quick fall for most newer players, and it's actually pretty easy, is when you're getting the early supers, and so. When you're in this,
you want to go there, and I'll.
Yeah, I'm already here. So basically, what you want to try to do, or probably the easiest way to do this, would be to jump on top of the missile and hold down. And so what ends up happening is after the fanfare animation, you can actually kind of queue up your fast fall by holding right. And if you release it at the correct time, then you will basically like just kind of release it as the fanfare goes away, or the text box that shows the item, and you should fall fast. Notice that if I do nothing, I just kind of fall slow. But if I hold right, I'll do that fast fall, and usually you will stay pointed downward afterwards, and then you just press left again after a certain rhythm, and you'll fast fall through that second one as well. As Moss pointed out, you actually do have a wider window if you're in the aim down position, but sometimes you can be out of the aim down position but still get it, here at this second one or whatever. Like, let me see if I can try to make a mistake. Yeah, like right there, I wasn't in the aim down position but still got it. So this is a really good spot for you to kind of, not only practice this move, but this is probably the single most applicable place for newer players to use it. All right, so Malsa, did you say you're going to talk about Keigo?
Let's do Keigoing really quick, yeah.
All right.
If anyone has any quick questions, let us know now, I guess. But we're going really long tonight. Okay, Keigoing. So it kind of uses the same idea of that turnaround animation. So these are what are called uninterruptible animations. So meaning the game has to finish the turnaround animation before anything else can happen to Samus. So you can't land until you finish the turnaround animation. You can't get like knocked back from damage until you've done the turnaround animation. And in fact, you often don't get damage knockback if you're turning around through the damage. So it works for turnarounds, and it also works for morphing and unmorphing. The animation to morph can't be interrupted. And so this can be used to jump through certain enemies. And it's called Keigoing. It's named after one of the enemies called the Keigo. And it's kind of a stupid enemy, really, because it doesn't really do anything. It's just sort of a big egg that sits there. But you can Keigo through it. I don't know how people actually originally Keigoed through that, because it's not really in a location where I find you're probably going to do that, but that's how it was discovered. So if you morph right as you are about to land on these platforms are kind of treated as enemies. I think it has to do with the fact that they're moving. Any kind of moving platform like this, you can Keigo through. So Keigoing is when you enter a uninterruptible animation as you're about to land, and the game doesn't allow you to land. So instead of landing on the enemy, you actually just drop straight through them. There is a Keigo in this room. That's right. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. What's up, Static? Yeah, that's a Keigo. That's where it comes from. Yeah, so you can Keigo into these things. I'm actually I'd be interested to know who first discovered Keigoing. This is probably, if you're going to Keigo, this is where it's probably going to happen, and you don't want it to happen in this situation. So it can happen from morphing. It can also happen from if you turn around. If you're about to land on this thing and you turn around, I swear it happens all the time. There it is. So you can fall if you spin around. You're more likely to fall if you're aiming down, I think. Oh, it also sort of depends in this situation. Kind of depends on the movement of platforms. That's another thing to understand is, like, if the platform's moving down, then you may not Keigo through it because with a turnaround, because you'll essentially drop down and land on the platform as it moves down. If it's moving up, it's very easy to drop through a platform. So especially when platforms are moving up, you have to be careful. So this is probably the place where you're going to Keigo the most. You can actually Keigo, I think, if you're doing a spin jump and you turn around. I don't know if that's correct. But anyways, you don't want to turn around on these guys. It is handy in a couple of specific locations, but it's just something to be aware of the game, that like these things can happen. So watch out on platforms like this. It's useful in Norfair to go down the spiky platforms. I think they're called Kazans. And if you want, just before you get to Ridley, you can actually Keigo through those platforms, but you do take damage. That's the thing to note about Keigos. If the enemy or platform can deal damage to you, it will deal the damage to you. So that's kind of an interesting thing about the game. I don't know if there's much else to say about Keigos, really. One little thing. This is kind of a KGO with these platforms, but if the platform's moving upward, like I was saying, moving up, it's more likely to KGO. You can actually KGO through these when they're moving up if you ledge grab. So if you break out a spin as you're about to land on the platform, your hitbox actually like expands so that your feet are inside the platform. So it's possible. It doesn't happen all the time, but it is possible when they're moving up. If you try to ledge grab on them, you can actually go through it. It could happen if you shoot as you go through it. Most likely, the places that will happen is here. It also happens in 100% if you're going through that spiky room of death with all those all the spikes on the ground and the spiky platforms that go up and down. It's really easy for that to happen. Mainly because those platforms are underwater a lot, and when they're underwater, your turnaround animation is longer, like I said before. So that's a really, really dangerous place to turn around on the platforms. So watch out for those things. Mentioned this already. You can also go through enemies by doing a turnaround or more. That is correct. Anytime there's an enemy, you can go through all enemies, not just platforms. I mean, these platforms are sort of like enemies, but you can KO through like a lot of enemies, actually. Every enemy. So you notice that I don't get knocked back. I take the damage, but I don't get knocked back if I turn around properly through this guy. So you see I just drop right through him. It is handy in a couple of situations to do that, but it's very specific. Really, I think KGOing, the big thing to know about KGOing is it happens in this room, and you want to avoid it. When you're first learning, I don't think that there's a lot of KGO strats you need to really worry about, though. Anything else, Kipp?
No, I think that covers it. Kind of like Beefer was talking about, like just before you mentioned the enemies, he was talking about KGOing through enemies, and it's very useful. And then you kind of mentioned, I guess it's important that people understand that, and, I know ED could explain this better, maybe some other people, but the whole reason that you're even able to KGO through some of those things, like the ones Moss is using in that room before Wave, and then, the spiky platforms in the spiky room of death and Wreck Ship, or the ones in Lower Norfair, is because the game technically considers those enemies. If they were considered, regular platforms, like you literally would not be able to do that. So it's just kind of neat to kind of realize that the game kind of works in that way. But another place that you might not necessarily die, but you could lose a lot of time if you do an accidental KGO, is if you're doing 100% and you're trying to get the Wreck Ship E-Tank. You can KGO. It's the same platforms that you're in right now in the Wave Room, and you can accidentally KGO through those and fall in the water and lose a good chunk of time.
Absolutely, you could. Yeah.
So, and just as a quick addendum, I'll probably go over this at some point in the future, but the KGO that he's referring to in Lower Norfair, those platforms do damage. I can't remember the exact number.
50, I think, with power with gravity suit.
Yeah, so that's still a lot. So you can actually KGO through and still use iframes from running into different spikes. So in that particular area in Lower Norfair, it's usually better to run into the wall spikes that do 15 damage first, and then attempt the KGO.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your iframes won't affect your ability to KGO at all. But so guys, I guess that's going to be it for tonight for our episode number 4. Again, we're constantly trying to figure out, how long it's going to take to do some of these episodes. And tonight was obviously a little long because we were just talking a lot about general movement type things, and there's just so many things to go over. But we hope that this was beneficial to you, and regardless of whether you're a brand new player just trying to figure out the game, or if you're someone who has a little bit more experience. But we want to in particular say thank you again to Galamoz for stopping by, and again a huge congratulations to him for winning the rando tournament. And when I do the highlight for this particular episode, I'll make sure to also link his movement tutorial. That's part of the reason we wanted to talk about movement stuff tonight, is because he covers a lot of things in his 5-hour movement tutorial, which is very good. I would recommend watching it, especially if you have a little bit more experience. But Moss, anything else you want to close with to the viewers?
No, not really. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post that tutorial in the chat right now.
Great.
Post it again when in the comments or whatever. Not really. I mean, that was a lot of stuff. Obviously, there's so many things in this game. Like it takes this long to really explain all these things in detail.
Yeah.
And it's why we're deciding to do it this way. Is that, if we're trying to talk about other routes and segments of runs, if we have to keep going back and re-explaining what these things are, it's like it takes a lot of time now to save time later, and we can just say refer back to this if if you don't know how to do quick dropping, refer back to this.
Yeah. And even though it did take a lot of time, personally, I believe it's time well spent. And I think that's part of the reason why and I'm sure a lot of other people love the game, is just because there's so much depth to this game. I keep throwing this word out, and I don't use it lightly, but especially for the 16, I think any era, but especially for the 16-bit era, this game is a masterpiece in a way that a lot of other games are maybe fun and great, but they just don't have nearly as much in-depth tech to them. And so learning about this kind of stuff can be very helpful in the long run. I truly believe that learning why something works, in addition to applying it to your run, the marriage of those two things will make you improve the fastest.
Yeah, and the physics in this game are perfect. So, it's why this game is so great to speedrun. Is the physics are so great. It's like Mario 64, so excellent, and that's why you can push the game as far as you can, right?
Absolutely. So thank you guys for all the positive comments. We really hope that you guys enjoy this, and just once again be reminded that I will highlight this in the next few days. And that way it'll be easier for people to find the specific Strat chat as opposed to going through my whole broadcast. So at this point, Moss, thank you very much once again for taking the time to not only, tonight show these things and explain, but also taking time over the last couple of, weeks to kind of plan out some things and whatnot. Dude, it was a very enjoyable experience again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, I will catch you later, man.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
All right, so at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually